My apologies. Can you just go back, please? Go back. Okay. Again. Yes, over the years, these are some of the, and I want to acknowledge some of the chairpersons, the people who have led the Mahi in Papaya Pacific Community Trust. Next, please. In terms of PPC governance, we do have a board of trustees that oversee the governance of the organization, representing most of our major countries here in Palmerston North. Next. While I'm here to talk about the Pacifica Center, I want to make acknowledgement of some of the key areas in the current long-term plan that are important and have implications for Pacifica. One in particular is on housing. We all know the importance of having housing that's not only affordable, but also reflects the intergenerational lives of Pacifica. So we really would like to engage further as council start in the process of designing or the consultation for housing. And environmental sustainability is really important. You know, we live in a time where climate change have had significant implications, not only on our city and our livelihoods, but more so in the Pacific Islands. We're very mindful that in the process of developing infrastructure and other development projects here in Palmerston North, utmost attention must be given to ensure that we are able to look after our environment. Affordable rates, I commend council on the decision to make, I think, the rates at 11.3%, noting the difficult economic times that we're in. And of course, I know councillors that this is a difficult time in terms of socioeconomic times that we're in, but it's important that investment is made in sustainable and resilient infrastructure, one of which is the Pacifica Center, amongst other projects that are involved in this long-term plan. Next slide, please. Just an overview of PPCT. Our vision is to develop an empowered, resilient, and prosperous Pacifica community. Our key values are indicated. Our work is guided by our strategic planning framework and also stipulated in our trust deed. But there are 5 strategic priority areas. Language and culture, that's really important for our people. Health and well-being, education and training, one area in which we do a lot of work in, economic and enterprise, as well as engagement and governance. When I reflect on the work that we have done over the years, there is, really good or perfect alignment with the 5 goals of Palmerston North City Council, especially goal 1, 2, and 3. I will talk a little bit about this later on. Next slide. Just to give us a glimpse of some of the, as I said before, culture and language is really, really important. So at the center which you have gifted to us, we have optimized every opportunity to make sure that language promotion as well as cultural development is happening in all those spaces. Next. Education and training. This is an area that we have spent a lot of effort in. Nelson Mandela once, if the son of a farmer can become a president of a country through good education, why can't we support our kids so that they can achieve the aspirations they have in life? So at PPCT, we're really pleased to have support of our partners, the Ministry of Education, DIA, Massey University, who have provided programs or funded our programs so that we are able to deliver on top of what our schools offer, quality education for our children, provided in a culturally safe space. Health and well-being, we all know that during COVID, it is because of organizations like PPCT and New Waka, amongst Maori service providers in Palmerston North, they were able to mobilize resources and help promoting healthy living for our people. So again, we do a lot of work, but we also recognize the need to invest more in health and well-being initiatives for our people. Next one. Economic enterprise, obviously, this is an area We're all seeing the impacts of COVID. The long tail of COVID continue to impact on our people. But it would be nice to provide opportunities to grow entrepreneurial skills of our people. Next one. Engagement and governance. Again, we do a lot of this, whether it's engaging with government agencies, with organizations, with service providers. One of the pictures there is the table rugby team who comes. Our intention was to have our kids look up and get inspired by these role models. Next slide. Again, I want to acknowledge the valued contribution by our partners. And this is something that we pride ourselves in. Through the work that we are doing, we'll be recognized by these organizations who year in, year out continue to provide financial assistance that enable us to employ staff and also continue to reach out and support our Pacifica families. Next. But outside PPCT, as a Pacifica community, I'm proud of the achievements that we have made in sporting excellence. Some of our young people have done and excelled in sports, representing Manawatu and also Wellington region. Amanaki STEM Academy, whom we partner with and support, they've done some really brilliant work, profiling the work that we do in our region. Fatuat Pacifica Learning Hub, we also get a lot of support for our vibrant church community, who's an important part of PPCT. I acknowledge here with us Helen Talamevau, who has spent many years, 20 years, supporting Pacifica Fusion, a cultural celebration, bringing in students and schools from our region. The language nest, local, common, and national, we've had the Honorable Tangi Utikere, amongst others who have contributed not only to council but also national representation. We do a lot of work with Massey University, and we continue to partner with Massey in rolling out programs for our people. Pacific Business Trust, the Pacifica Reference Group, acknowledge the council vision for establishing that group so that we are able, council is able to get the pulse of the Pacifica community at all times. And of course, I acknowledge the collaboration with providers and common services. Next. So this project is not only investing in a building, it is about investing in our people. It's investing in Palmerston North City Council's most valuable assets, our people. And that's why we're here today. That's why our community is here today, because we are passionate about our future generations. So our vision for the hub that is before us, we would like to see it as a hub of educational and sporting excellence. We want it to be the cultural center for people in our region that other towns in New Zealand can aspire to and look at. We would like to have a health and well-being hub so that can take some of the pressure off the mainstream services, because our Pacific people feel comfortable in being served by our own. We like the hub to be an incubator for growing entrepreneurial skills of our people interested in undertaking business. A place for inclusivity and celebration of diversity. Over the years, we welcome the Pakistani Association, the Myanmar, Iwi Tapu, amongst many non-Pacifica groups use the space, and we continue. We feel that that's really important in enriching our space and our experiences. Most importantly, disaster management response. That's really something that we want to do to promote amongst that. We will provide or strengthen capacity of our city to be able, in times of disasters, to be able to mobilize support in a speedy way.
Kia ora, Sunny. Thank you very much. That's 10 minutes is up. But I'll just let the chamber know, that the councillors, that the rest of your slides are available for the city councillors for us to review. And we will be deliberating on your submission at the end of the month.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Chairperson Fitzgerald. Councillors, thank you for your time. Again, I humbly ask for your support. This is really, really important for our people. And I have faith and trust that you'll be catalysts for bringing about change and making this investment happen for our Pacific community. Whakawalahi, and thank you once again.
Tēnā koe, Sani, tēnā koutou. I'd like to now invite Andrew Jameson and Courtney Simon from the Pacifica Reference Group, submission number 1170. Kia ora, Andrew.
Kia ora.
And Courtney, welcome. Hey, so your video is 4 minutes long. Would you like to play it at any time? Just let us know.
Yes, we will play the video towards the end of our verbal presentation. Just like to acknowledge Deputy Mayor, kia ora whaia, Chair, Councillor Fitzgerald, fellow councillors, guests in the chamber. Tawhalawa, Malolorei, Nisa Mbolavinaka, whakalofalahi atu, kia ora ana, Māori, hala ola keta, warm Pacific greetings. My name is Andrew Jameson indeed, and this is Courtney. We are representing the Pacifica community on behalf of our roles as the co-chairs of the Pacifica, and I forgot Situi Fata, who's here also as support. We're here, as I said, as in our roles of co-chairs of the Pacifica Reference Group, and we'd like to acknowledge those in our community who have come before us and paved the way for us to continue all of our good work.
Our Pacifica Reference Group submitted, as you will have seen, on the long-term plan this year. We have been at many council meetings to support and advocate for our Pacifica community and to give ourselves a voice at the table. And you will see some of those voices here behind us today. So thank you to our community who has attended today. In our submission, we highlighted 3 things that we see as a priority for our community in the long-term plan. Those 3 things were the Pacifica Centre refurbishment, housing, and the youth of our city. We commend the Council for its bold actions over the past 3 years, such as enabling Māori wards, promoting age-friendly initiatives, establishing the Pacifica Reference Group, enhancing the community development team's capabilities, the Youth Wellbeing Forum, and hopefully the strategy investment, and encouraging cultural engagement in the city, to just highlight a few. Your continued focus on the people across the city can be seen. 2 social organisations from our Pacifica community have raised concerns regarding representation and equity in housing, employment, social support, food security and education, which you've all heard before, so I won't state those stats again, but we both know that you have already seen this every day. You've seen it at the supermarket, you've seen it at schools, you've seen it in the community out on the streets, you've seen it across management and boards in most spaces where we all serve. You have heard about these in community committee meetings for years. You have seen it on the news, and since the local government elections, we have seen it at this table. Now, most will argue that as a minority, the stats would be accurate, but when the equity gap reflects us always at the bottom and so large for this minority, we both know that to see change, investment and changes need to start with our leaders to support the Tanoa across the rest of the community.
Our community is self-sustaining, and whilst we acknowledge the support of the council and the work being done, we also have to acknowledge the work that has been done for decades through our churches, through our sports clubs, through our support networks, which we have created across organisations and with resources which are scarce. We urge the council to take a brave step during deliberations, and that you support this Pacifica Community Centre by investing in the refurbishment. The space is at its capacity. It holds about 100 people, and we already know that this needs to be expanded. When you consider when you deliberate and consider about our community, we will go without. As we grow, if you do not commit to this refurbishment, there is potential lost if we don't expand this space. The space plays a vital role in preserving Pacific cultures, as all our language weeks are celebrated there, supporting youth and education as discussed earlier through multiple programs and the digital hub. Food security from PPCT and their funding support, health with Think Hauora, New Vaka, and sports programs from Kia Toa, Manawatu Sports, to name a few. We know that whilst this is a council building, that the space has also supported itself through the community and the organisations that have stood themselves up and that utilise the space to do so. We want to highlight that the support from this hub comes from many areas, and we facilitated petitions signed by over 250 people. Thanks, Maggie, for organising that. And we saw multiple individual submissions from across the ages in our community. We now want to share some of these voices with you. Oh, sorry, I'll just pass over to Satui.
Talofa everyone, my name is Satui Fata. Being Pacifica, we are creative, and so I created something at our hui in just 5 minutes. Listen up. The Pacifica Reference Group meets at PNCC, championed by our humble leader, Salome. Different Pacifica leaders who meet around the table, supporting one another to ensure Pacific opportunities remain open and consistently stable. Our ideas would be heard by the council members who create change. Without Pacifica Reference Group, things would remain the same. It's not for fame, we're not here to blame, but more to direct the council down our colourful Pacifica lane. A lane full of culture, traditions, values and love. We can't do it on our own, we need support from up above. To guide us with wisdom, understanding and insight. We are Pacifica, food, singing and laughter, colourful and bright. Together, united we stand. Submission, Melanesian, Micronesian, Polynesian. Pacifica voice needs to be heard for this long-term plan. We are humbled to be leaders, the voice piece for our Pacifica community. We are the beginning, the pioneers for more Pacifica opportunity. We are proud to be PI, we are proud to be alive. Open your hearts, your dreams and aspirations. Make a change. Let your cultural creativity fly. Fly into the unknown spaces, smiling Pacifica faces. We are here to stay. We will not fade away. I am the change. You are the change. And we are the change.
Lo'oingo o Leilani Fe'uaso. In the 1960s, my grandparents were one of the first Samoan families to call Palmerston North their home. 60 years later, I'm urging the City Council to invest in our Pacifica Hub, our Pacifica people, and our local communities to reflect the rich and diverse cultures of our Pacifica peoples. This would not only be a huge win and investment into our communities, but would also be a huge leadership step for the Palmerston North City Council to be one of the very few city councils across New Zealand that has supported the establishment of a whale. This would meet the Palmerston North City Council's goals of an innovative and growing city. Although Pacifica people only make up 6.1%, our love, our service, our input and our leadership over the years has made Palmerston North what it is today. And without us, Palmerston North would look very different. Whakatau te le lava.
On behalf of Kia Tall Women, we just want to say we total for the Pacifica Hub. 2, 3.
Mula Vanaka, my name is Mati Roma. I am the Upoko Whakarai for Te Tihi o Ruahine Whānau Water Alliance, and we support the Pacifica Hub and the investment in that.
Hi, my name is Danielle Rastrick and I am in support of the Pacifica Hub.
Talofa lava o Roingoa o Saseva. Talofa o Roingoa o Tyson, so Sheriff. And we support the investment of the Pacifica Hub. That's right. Let's go.
Kia ora tātai katoa, my name is Malala, I support the Pacific Hub.
Kia ora, ka Rachel Rakatou tōku ingoa. I 100% support the investment into the Pacifica Hub.
Tēnā koutou, my name is Ebony and I support the investment into the Pacifica Hub.
Kia ora!
Kia ora koutou katoa, my name is Faini Samuels and I support the investment of the Pacifica Hub.
My name is Tori Ratama and I support the investment for the Pacifica Hub.
Talofa, I'm Satui Fata. I support the investment in the Pacifica Hub.
Talofa lava, my name is Fiona and I support the investment into the Pacifica Hub.
Lava, my name is Johnny Liotta and I'm here to support the Pacifica Hub and the good work that they're doing.
Where's your Pacifica Center?
Kia ora, my name is Kayla, and as an ally and a friend of Pacifica people and initiatives, I am in full support of the expansion of the Pacifica Hub. I think this will be such an important thing for Pacifica people, but also the community as a whole. Pacifica people bring such important and vital knowledge and culture to our community, and so I think this expansion will be a win-win for everybody.
Wa'ya, my name is Jenny Tuiloma Salmon, and I support the investment into the Pacifica Centre.
Bula.
We are the Fijian Wesleyan Youth, and we support the investment of the Pacifica Centre.
Talofa Davis here from Lord Chief Nu'u, and I support the Pacifica Hub because our people have always been amazing hosts, and I think this is going to be amazing for our entire community. Manuia.
Malelele, my name's Anna.
And I'm Leva, and
we're in support of investing into the Pacifica Hub.
Malolere ko pingo ko sinipatimbana ko support the Pacifica Hub.
Noia, my name is Hannah Soman, and I'm in support of the Pacifica Hub.
Malolere, my name is Olivia Halaiwhanua, and I'm in support of investing into Pacifica Hub.
Talofalava, Bulivinaka, Kia orana. My name is Liv, and I support the investment into the Pacifica Hub.
My name is Fadabdulwana, and I'm in support of investing into Pacifica Hub.
Olele, we are from North Boys High School, and we
support the expansion of the Pacifica Hub. Make Bill Brown bigger.
So please, again, when deliberations occur, take that risk, vote yes, and just know that the small investment that you're giving us, because it is small, we will always give back in service. Vinaka Valevu.
Kia ora, thank you very much. Again, it gives me great pleasure to invite Matt Norwell and Simone Williams. I think they might be joining us on Teams from Foodstuffs New Zealand. Submission number 1043.
Good afternoon. My name's Simone Williams, and I'm a planner at Barker & Associates. We're presenting on behalf of Foodstuffs Wellington Limited. Foodstuffs are in support of the draft development contributions policy as part of the LT plan. And I'm happy to take our submission as read and answer any questions if there's any questions on our submission.
Thank you very much, Simone. We've got a question from Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Simone. Just appreciate that you're not opposing the DC policy. Just wondered if you were going to draw up your own ideal one, how close it would look to this.
We're in support of, well, Foodstuffs are in support of the policy at present, mainly due to the recalculation of development contributions that has occurred in the North East Industrial Zone, based on the actual demand and I guess the way that zone has been used in terms of the consumption, particularly in terms of water and wastewater supply. So the way that that's been redrafted, Foodstuffs are in support of that decision. Great, thank you. I realised you didn't comment in your submission around the rating system review, but just wondered if that had been considered by Foodstuffs? No, it hadn't been. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. And that brings our questions to an end. Simone, thank you very much for your submission. We'll be deliberating at the end of the month.
Great, thank you everyone.
Thank you. And again, it gives me pleasure to invite our next speaker, Suzanne Shadbot from Tanoa, submission number 947. Kia ora, Suzanne.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko tēnei takomihi ki ngā tangata whenua o te roa nei. I'd like to acknowledge our Deputy Mayor, Debbie Marshall-Lobb, and Councillor Rolly Fitzgerald. I wish to acknowledge the people of Rangitane as mana whenua, and I want to thank them for the continued trust and collaboration in the work that we do, particularly in the recent refresh of the Te Rangi Whenua Gallery and the development of our Mātauranga Māori programs. Ngā mihi kia koutou katoa. I also want to acknowledge staff and board members of Te Manawa who are with us here today. Thank you. I want to begin by sharing Te Manawa's vision. Whakatōna kakano o te ao marama kia puawai. Together we will plant the seeds of tomorrow through the stories that we share. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on behalf of Te Manawa to the city's long-term plan. We are grateful for the continued support of Council, and I don't mean this purely from a funding point of view, but for the foresight and the understanding you have shown for our important mission. One of the major challenges we face is our facility, and it was so encouraging for our whole team to see in the draft long-term plan that we share the same aspiration for a new fit-for-purpose facility that retains the original art gallery. It made us feel heard, and it made us happy to know that our work is seen as so important. It is difficult during tough economic times to reconcile both the cost and the value of our investments. When costs increase, the value doesn't automatically rise with it, nor is it as obvious when it does. But the value is there, and it grows over time, provided that the investment allows us to keep evolving to meet the expectations of those that we serve. I am grateful for the endorsement of individuals and groups touched by Te Manawa who can see that value and have voiced their support for us. They have told us that we are one of the best free activities in Pāmi, that we are a place families can enjoy together, and that the interactivity and accompanying displays leave them inspired, having learned a little more. Multiple comparisons have been made of cultural institutions around the country, and there always are. Notably, a subsidy per visit comparison is part of the Te Motua Potoa report. I do want to take a minute to address that, as it is relevant to understanding our value in light of this submission. The report is an unusual grouping to draw comparisons from and doesn't compare like to like, but that is really important. Comparing Te Manawa to the likes of Auckland or Canterbury museums is not particularly helpful, as they are significantly larger in scale, but smaller in scope. They do not include their art galleries, for example, which, when rolled in together, would reflect a very different cost. Our facilities also vary by what is attached to us. Some museums and galleries are located close to transport hubs or include cafes or visitor centres. Despite this, Te Manawa's data still compares favourably, and I think we can certainly be proud of that. The range of subsidy of the other 5 comparable museum and galleries is between $25 and $35, compared to Te Manawa's, which is below $24. Our multidisciplinary uniqueness is also a strength rather than a hindrance, and makes for richer collaborations that benefit all of us. The comparison period of 2018 to 21 in that report shows that Te Manawa has provided a more stable and consistent return than others. It also shows that our post-COVID bounce back is a result of some very hard work to establish and maintain trust of our community, and reflects the vital part we play in connecting them to one another. But we mustn't forget, beyond nothing through the door, there are other ways of demonstrating value. And as a reminder, we turn over around 30 exhibitions and displays across the art, science and heritage disciplines. We care for a public collection of more than 350,000 objects, with the addition of the Peter Bush collection, a photographic archive of national significance. We welcome more than 200 visiting schools and childhood centres every year, and now offer our learning programs free of charge to local schools. We hold more than 80 events, activities and programs, and we host 25 unique community groups and organisations on a regular basis. The overwhelming positive feedback we received from the over 35,000 visitors of the Sixth Extinction exhibition is one measure of success, along with the estimated $6 million contribution to the local economy through visitor spend. An economic impact report undertaken through Event Insights has shown that this particular exhibition was of great value to our city. It is also an example of where we have actually made tough calls ourselves and will continue to do so. Six Extinctions was actually a late replacement for a previously scheduled exhibition that would have been too big, too resource intensive and too expensive to stage at Tanoa in the current climate. Six Extinctions, however, better linked to the environmental and sustainability themes that are so important to our community. We know that cuts are being made around the country and indeed around the world. We fear that the resulting service reductions will have lasting impacts, but hopefully they won't last long. We are also aware that art and culture is seen as by some as some nice to have and not essential. But we know from public feedback that ratepayers disagree. They have told us that we are a place in which they feel safe, in which they feel connected, inspired and included. They are proud of having Te Manawa in their place and as their place. It's commonly said within our industry that the arts are traditionally rescued rather than rewarded, and that councils should only focus on roads and housing. We all know better than that, and we are lucky that our city has invested wisely in its infrastructure over the years. While it is an ongoing and significant cost, it is made for one of the most livable cities in Aotearoa. Balancing that investment in social well-being through arts, culture, heritage and our landmark facilities will ensure that our livable city is also alive. That is our greatest reward. We are your cultural infrastructure. We are essential. It may seem redundant to be emphasizing this point to representatives who we know understand our importance and have engaged with us in some meaningful ways. Again, I and the whole team are very grateful to you for this. What I'm hoping to communicate here today, through emphasizing the importance of our work, is that we have enormous potential to fulfill, and we don't want to fall into a holding pattern. It would reduce the effectiveness of our engagement and would cost more in the long run to correct. We have a big journey ahead, and we look forward to being on that journey with Council. Your teams have been an immense support to us and have become a part of our family. Our future is ambitious, and we understand the need for some restraint and careful consideration and planning. Let that not be at the expense of that ambition, though. Our people deserve to see opportunities met and potential fulfilled, and we will do everything we can to continue to make them proud. Ngā mihi mahana kia koutou katoa. Thank you again for your support and for your consideration. Kia ora.
Got a tēnā, and a couple of questions for you, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Susanna. I really appreciate your submission. I'd like to take a moment to ask about your thoughts on the proposed new build and purpose-built facility. I see you've supported the concept of a purpose-build. What are your thoughts around the idea of 90% co-funding, which would, in all likelihood, mean we need to build it privately and lease it back? Given you'd be the ones operating in that space, do you have any thoughts around that?
I think it's very ambitious, and Te Manawa certainly couldn't do this alone, so I hope we can work together, and I'm hoping that over the next 2 or 3 years we can find strategies and ways to work towards that.
Thank you. And do you have a view on location, given we're going to be rebuilding the library at the same time, whether or not you're committed to the site you're on, or you'd be open to, as long as you've got a new facility, you're not too bothered where it would be? Where would you sort of sit?
I think it's a really difficult answer to sort of respond to on the spot, but I think some really considered thoughts need to go into this. I'm not unhappy with the site that we are on at the moment, and I would like to think we would need to be very closely connected to our community and in the city centre, but I'm very open to doing some investigation and work with the team around that as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Naylor.
Thanks, Susanna. Just referring to your written submission, and the part that's in bold is requesting a gradual increase in the baseline funding over the next 3 years. I'm just wondering if you, just to be specific, there was an $800,000 over those 3 years added already. Are you referring to what's already been included, the 151 in year 1, 268 in year 2, and 379 in year 3? Are you asking for something over and above that, or are you simply referring to that additional funding that's already been included?
I'm referring to the additional funding included, so it's to support the transition to a strategic pace, so the salaries for our staff, and then the baseline funding in year 2, an additional 80,000 plus an additional 80,000 in year 3 in a stepped approach.
Okay. So that's already included in our draft, so you're not asking for anything above that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Susanna. Tēnā koe.
Thank you.
Apologies, Councillor Bowen. It gives me great pleasure to invite Kevin Lowe to take the microphone this afternoon. Submission number 974. Welcome, Kevin.
Yeah, sure. Do I just start to speak? Yes. Thank you.
When you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, councillors, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to the plan. I want to speak to just 2 issues of my of my submission, both existential issues facing this community. Before I get onto them, just one positive note. I heard this morning that Palmerston North's drinking water has been placed in the top 5 in the country in terms of water quality, and that I think is deserves congratulations to everyone here. The 2 issues that we are facing are big issues. We're not good at dealing with existential issues. They overwhelm us. They tend to get ignored or put on the back burner or even get laid on the table. I do want to encourage Council to confront these issues and act on their own decisions, please. The first one is wastewater. The Council, like everybody in the whole town, hoped that this would go away, and it did for a while, but it's back again. And early costings are showing that not only is it not affordable for the community, but it has huge opportunity to dislocate this community completely. This is simply not affordable at $1,000 a year additional on top of rates. I've no idea exactly what technical solutions are considered, but it could be that perhaps we should aim towards 80% of best practice with a further costing later on after a period. Given the existential threat that $1,000 per ratepayer of wastewater charges, I cannot support any of the new capital works in the 10-year plan. I think that all the major capital works should be deferred until the wastewater issue is decided and there is a way forward. By contrast, I think debt should be paid off with the funds saved, and that would assist reduction of the impact of the wastewater project on ratepayers to a more manageable level. The second issue I would like to talk about is climate change, and in particular the way the council handles their responsibilities and their leadership on climate change. It's another existential crisis for everybody, and we are looking to council for leadership in this area. We had or have on the books a networks plan. I understand it's on the back burner, but it adequately deals with an awful lot of what council could do as its contribution to reducing our carbon footprint. I'd like to move on and show you a couple of things that happen because of poor planning. This is Summerhill Drive that has been revamped about 2, maybe 3 times in the period I've lived beyond it, and this is Summerhill Drive virtually today. That's a few months ago. That's a young schoolgirl trying to get to school. There's around 1,000 school children that would like to use that road every day to travel to school, but you can see why they don't, and you can see why they all end up in a motor vehicle. There's a close-up of the young girl's face. I travel that road about 4 to 6 times a week. I have exactly the same look on my face every time I do it. She's doing around 18 to 20 kilometres an hour. That car right behind her is doing between 60 and 70 kilometres an hour. It is a 60 kilometre an hour zone, but it's only about 80 metres from the 60 k's sign, and previously the vehicles were doing 70 kilometres an hour. You can see as you progress through there, she is actually right almost in the centre of the carriageway. There are cars everywhere. There are 2 vehicles facing each other trying to use the flush median, and the opportunity for an accident in a situation like that is extraordinarily high. It's not a single event. I see it every single week. There's a number of ways of resolving problems like that, but Amsterdam is a particularly good example, where currently 40% of all city movements are not in motor vehicles. 40% of all city events are not in motor vehicles. Just imagine if Palmerston North had a 40% reduction in the number of motor vehicles on the road, and the money that would save in things like new traffic lights, new lanes, and all the things that go with it. There's another example at exactly the same place where there is a person with a child on the back of their bike trying to get to school, and cars, and having to push into a lane of traffic doing somewhere around 60 kilometres an hour. In situations like that, dedicated cycle lanes are the only solution, and I really implore you to implement the network plan to solve the problems we have of getting people out of motor cars. The network plan particularly would handle things like a dedicated cycle lane where in that particular case vehicles have taken over the cycle lane basically, and it would obviously also reduce the speed, which is far too fast for that sort of place to be. So in conclusion, I'd like to fully, in terms of the getting back on track with the networks plan, I'd fully support reducing the carbon footprint of all council operations, continuing to encourage alternatives to private cars as a means of moving around the city, encourage cycling, particularly for school children, by pressing ahead with dedicated cycle lanes and safer streets, and that means reduction in speed limits. I'd like to encourage recreational cycling, which seems to have fallen in a bit of a hole at the moment because it has dual benefits of reducing the carbon footprint and improving the general health of our community. In particular, I'd like to give urgency to extending the cycleway to Ashurst, which just seems to go on and on and on, and the shared Te Arawa pathway to Bunnythorpe, which is in a rather unfortunate state at the moment as well. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Kevin. We've got a couple of questions here. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kevin, for coming in to speak today. I just wanted to check. You'd said with the capital programmes that you didn't support that that we should pay off our debt with the amount that's saved.
Yes.
I want to check what you meant by that. Did you mean that we should rate a particular programme and use that rating to pay off debt, or did you just say we shouldn't do it and that would be in itself a saving?
I'm suggesting we try and get ourselves into a better financial footholding to be able to handle the huge cost of the wastewater system. Mm-hmm. It could be a dedicated fund that the money gets put into or whatever. But what I'm suggesting is that entering into very worthy and very useful projects at the present time, while we have wastewater hanging over our head, is not the best way forward.
Yeah, I understood that. So my point was, if we don't do it...
Sorry, Councillor, we're just out of time now. My apologies. Thank you very much, Kevin, for your submission. I'd like to welcome and invite Mr. Hugh Wild to the microphone, please. Submission number 991. Welcome, Hugh. Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I'll talk about the rating system first, as the council's work and the projects depend on the amount of income generated from rates. I strongly support a change from the present land value rating system, option 3, to a capital value rating system, option 2. This will bring our city into line with about 70% of New Zealand towns and cities who use CV rating rather than LV rating. Rates are a form of property tax, as stated on page 29 of the consultation document. Most tax systems account for wealth or ability of the taxpayer to pay the tax, unlike our present rating system. In my opinion, the fairest method of setting city rates is to base it on total CV, Those living in highly capitalised properties will pay more than those living in cheaper properties. This, in my opinion, is fairer and more income tax system. With land value rating in older suburbs, sections are larger, say up to about 900 square metres, and homes are lower valued, ratepayers are at present more highly rated compared with ratepayers living in newer suburbs and often large houses on smaller sections, up to 500 or even 600 square metres. This is a result of land value rating. So I consider CV rating to be the fairest method, and it would reflect a ratepayer's ability to pay. This doesn't happen at present. However, should the council use only part of the CV for setting the rates, then I think no less than half of the capital value should be used, rather than 1/3. Whatever rating is adopted by the council, one way of keeping rate rises low is to drastically control spending. Essential work such as road repair, rubbish, recycling and wastewater disposal, and maintenance of council facilities must be carried out. There are also necessary improvements to the wastewater system and earthquake strengthening of cities' centre buildings. Some of these things we can't delay too long and certainly can't avoid. In addition, over the next 10 years, it is planned to upgrade community facilities and improve transport, council housing and water projects, apart from the wastewater. And that's a total of $676 million. According to the net debt forecast on page 51 of the consultation document, the total spending of the council is forecast to double from 300 million to 600 million in the next 4 years. And debt needs to be repaid with interest and will fall entirely on ratepayers, unless, of course, the council receive grants. And you'll be all aware, Audit New Zealand has reported in the Manawatu Standard of 9th of April that there's uncertainty around the number of projects the council is planning over the next 30 years as to whether it can possibly be done. And two areas of concern are how the council will raise the $647 million for the wastewater overhaul and a levy of $1,000 per year per ratepayer for 30 years if funded, and the sheer size of the council's capital program over the next 10 years. And I gather from news reports that I wouldn't be the first person to complain about the rather ambitious projects over the next 10 years. Now, one of the things I wanted to highlight is housing. And access to healthy and affordable housing in any city is of course necessary and desirable. But I wonder whether the medium density housing plan is producing healthy homes when black clad and black roofed houses spaced close together and surrounded by concrete with no grass or shrubs are in fact healthy. For those, for example, shown on page 28 of the consultation document, I gather on the corner of Featherston and Pyrie streets, and also across the road in Roy Street. There's no shade, no place for children to play except out on the street. With climate change and forecast hot summers, there will be increased demand on the electricity supply for air conditioning. Likewise, accelerated infill in older suburbs will produce much the same effect when houses are spaced very close together. Then there's the plan to build about 50 homes on the Hervia Street Reserve on the busy corner of Fitzherbert Avenue and Park Road, adjacent to Girls High School. Now I could bang on for a quarter of an hour, I think, with this, but are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Hugh. Yes, we do have a couple of questions. Councillor Naylor.
Yeah, thanks, Hugh, for your submission. You've raised your concern around the debt, or the proposed debt, and in your submission you've suggested that we scale back some of the nice-to-have projects. We've heard a lot about nice-to-have projects today. Are you able to identify some examples of projects that you consider to be nice to have?
Oh, yeah. I think top of the list would be the Awapuni Library at 27 million. I think this is a bit extravagant. It's only, 10 minutes cycle or drive into town. I think that's a bit over the top given the amount of debt that we'll be exposed to. Now the proposed Anzac Park Marae, 19 million. I mean, I would think that's a nice to have. Some external funding is available, I believe. But as I said in my submission, the written one, there is a very small marae in the square, and there is the marae at Maxwell's Line. And in the blurb in the consultation document, it talked about Anzac Park being a memorial area for fallen soldiers. Well, that was news to me, and I understand that that project would raise the mana of the area, as it's obviously significant to the Maori people. But we walk around there quite a bit in my walking group, and raising the mana a little bit, it could be achieved by cleaning up the rubbish. I mean, there's newspapers and rubbish lying around there because of its easy access. And until the gate was locked, the boy racers would leave their mark up there. So that's 3 examples. I made a few comments about the proposed water, the wastewater system. I think I might have got it wrong, thinking it was an on-land system. I've heard from a relative in Foxton, and the Foxton people keep a close eye on what we're doing with the sewage for obvious reasons, but downstream. And I believe that might be one of the thoughts is to set up a wetland at Motua, but that involves piping the sewage quite a distance, a significant difference, and pipes can get ruptured by earthquakes. And what else was there? Yeah, well, contractors. For an example, the jet fuel pipe into Auckland Airport was ruptured by a contractor, and that would mean that all the sewage would have to go to the river only semi-treated. I wonder whether a cheaper version could be to highly treat the sewage to the extent that it could almost be drinkable, and then put it into the river, and you've got easy access to the sea, which is eventually the best way to get rid of wastewater. It sounds a bit harsh, but there's plenty of fish in the sea to gobble up the nasties. And I know it's culturally a bit insensitive to some, but
Thanks,
there's a few
Hugh.
examples.
That's much appreciated.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for speaking to your submission, Hugh, which now goes through to deliberations at the end of the month.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Another pleasure. I'd like to invite the next speaker, Mark Gunning, submission number 1130. Welcome to the Chamber, Mark.
You're just about dead stretch, aren't you? You Osh rules there? Good afternoon, one and all. My name is Mark Gunning. I know a few of the faces around the table, for better or worse. I've been based in Palmerston North for 40 odd years, so I've been around quite a while. Have been involved in property as a career, originally as a valuer, then as a real estate agent, and finally running a large family property business for the last 6 years, just finishing last year. My wife and I have raised 4 boys in Palmerston North, and it was and still is a great place to raise children, which is a great thing to say. In fact, 3 of my boys have come back to Palmerston North to start with their young families because they saw it as a great place to be as well. So that's great. My main things today I just have concerns about projects as put forward, and there's obviously been a lot of talk around them, and I think it's understandable the capital cost is significant. And I look at it from a point of view of the economics, the actual need and the cost. I think progress is great and important, but we do also need to recognise we need to live within our means. We are a city, but we only have a population of 90,000, and I think we just need to be aware of that when we make these decisions, as opposed to the 300,000 and the 500,000 populations. Talked first to the Awapuni Community Centre, with a cost circa $30 million. I think there's several aspects to this. I think first is the need, and I refer you to a report on behalf of the City Council in 2002, a key spaces review, and I quote from this report: "The stocktake and need assessment has found that Palmerston North has a good range of facilities across the city." Now, I don't know how it's changed that much in the last couple of years, but that was a pretty strong statement. And I think there's probably potential to improve existing facilities rather than perhaps build a new facility. There are lots of community spaces available in Awapuni, and I'd be quite honest, I really believe that the need for the proposed new development is not really there. By nature, community uses are very part-time, and therefore halls, schools and churches are ideal venues and at little cost. And if you go to the second part of the actual cost, we talk about a 1,500 square metre building with a cost associated of 27 million. I struggle with that concept, to be fair. And I saw the drawing in the newspaper the other day, and I'm assuming it's probably been done by some consultants from outside of Palmerston North, I guess, which grates me rather somewhat, but there it is. So my experience in the building development trade is there, and I would be very surprised if you couldn't build something for $4,000 a square metre, and that's something good, and that comes to about $6 million. So I don't quite get the 27 million, but hey, that's not me. But then if you look at it from a return point of view, you've got a $30 million capital cost, and assuming operational cost of facilities plus cost of funding at 10% per annum, that's $3 million in a very simplistic view. So I suppose you've got to say, is this good use of $3 million? If we had $3 million annually to spend on Awapuni, would this be what we would do it on? Would we just have a new facility that we have to spend $3 million a year on to keep going? I'm sure Awapuni people, there's other things I'd much prefer to have at a guess. And I suppose there's the other argument of that: if we spend $3 million annually on Awapuni, there's going to be a lot of people from other suburbs saying, well, pick us too, when we have got quite a few suburbs. So the next thing is probably to talk to is the Anzac, as the older few of us here know, Pork Chop Hill. 15 million, or it's 19 million. Look, and I think recognise straight away that it is a site of significance, and I think that's great. But it gets down to how much we spend on that site of significance. And speaking purely from my history in the commercial real estate world, I struggle to see how the commercial viability of something like that. I think that great views, yes, but when you look at all the things it's talking about doing, I can see that costing the council a lot of money every year to keep it going. I think if you do the same equation as you do for the Awapuni Community Centre, and you talk return, you've got 15 million there, so it's less than $1.5 million a year operational cost to keep it going. I just can't see how that will happen. It's commercial viability of a cafe up there be fine for a while until something goes wrong, and then it'll turn to disaster and it'll be an eyesore. I think that, and then the other component in it is the $4 million on the road. I think that, to be perfectly blunt, it's a road that has one use, and spend $4 million on it does seem rather over the top. As an example, I know there's a couple of industrial developments that could happen in Palmerston North, but the City Council are saying haven't got any money for roading and suggesting they do the roading. So I don't quite understand the correlation between the two there. So summarising those things about that, I just see we as a community must focus on what we can afford as opposed to what we want. There are economic realities that need to be addressed prior to spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, ratepayers' dollars, on consultants, etc., to try to get to the point whether we think we go forward or not. There are some classic examples of that, but I won't go into that. And I think there needs to be a more rigorous process around ideas to stop them growing legs and being taken seriously without any reality checks. Dollars and cents are very important in those things. And one of the questions I was going to ask was about the seismic funding. And I'm just wondering, what do you mean by co-funding? Has anyone got a magic answer for me there? No. I'm assuming it's investors' money, so they want a return. So it's co-funding, but it's got to come at a considerable cost, considerable interest cost. And look, I understand seismic is an issue and things have to be done, but yeah, we perhaps need to look at different ways of doing it. So, and it gets down to the residential levies. I did make a comment on that. I've just completed, on behalf of some investors, a 10-unit complex in North Street, which basically, if you look at it from a point of view of rates, it was earning about $5,000 a year offered in rates. With these units up and running, it'll be about $25,000 a year. And I've paid development levies for a privilege of doing that. So if you look at that maths, you say, well, over the 10-year period, there's an extra $20,000 a year coming off it. That's $200,000. So I think just to keep adding costs onto development levies and things is easy to say, but the reality is it's a bit harsh, because once changes happen, the rates is increasing. And it was quite interesting because I read the article about it, talking about other councils covering the cost of interest on funding of infrastructure and adding that to the cost of development levies. And I'm sitting there in the back of my head thinking, yeah, well, we're just talking about $45 million worth of other projects. The cost of funding of those, there's only one people who are going to fund those, and that's the ratepayers. So I don't quite understand where we're coming from in that. But that's me. Well done. Keep up the good work. But any questions?
Thanks, Mark. Yes, a question from Councillor Bowen.
Good, Chair. Hi, Mark. Thanks for coming
Rachel.
in. Two quick questions if we've got time. First, in your written submission, you supported, with some changed comments, multicultural Pacifica and Te Patikitiki. And then in your comment to us now, you said you saw potential to improve existing spaces. So is that why you were supporting those, that they're existing?
Oh, I think, look, that is an existing space, isn't it? And I've outgrown it, doesn't need some attention. I don't have an issue with that at all.
Cool, that's helpful.
And by context of dollars and cents, it's pretty minor.
Yep. And then just, I wanted to pick your brains, if we could, about the commercial viability at Tanoa Pork Chop Hill.
Yep.
Yeah, what do you think would work up there?
Look, I think a viewing thing, a room with a whole lot of history and stuff around it. Commercial reality is cafes and things are very fickle. And the only shaking head she knows about it, it's just, you know, it can go well for a while, but long term, when you're not in the central city, it's a destination you have to drive to, it's a big ask to make it work.
Okay.
I can see, great place to have, you know, perhaps kids stay over at nights potentially, but yeah, I think you just need to keep it within reason.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
And Councillor Harper's got a very quick question. We might be able to squeeze it in. Councillor Harper.
Very quickly, thank you, Mark. Just this space at Awapuni, you talked about 4,000 a square metre.
Yep.
Realistically, would that be able to build something decent or not decent?
Describe decent.
You described what that would build.
Yeah, look, I absolutely. I think that it's way dearer on a square metre than a warehouse. We're talking at $4,000 a square metre. Yes, you could build something decent for that. And you could add appeal to it by doing the extra pieces, just doing, you know, a few facade things or whatever, internal things. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And it's just steel portal when you're talking, they're not getting.
Thank you, Mark. We're out of time.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Mark.
Thank you very much.
And again, great pleasure to invite Mary and Paul up to the microphone, please. Submission number 1157.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Mary Ann Paul, and I've lived in Palmerston all my life. I'm just a voice of one person. I'm not going to talk about too much, just one thing. So my parents immigrated from Holland after the war. We had 6 children in our family, and the first child born had Down syndrome, one of God's little angels. So our family has grown up in the disability sector for over 60 years, and we are still involved. I'm turning 70 next year, and it feels like I'm becoming part of that disability sector myself. My parents were hardworking and very community-minded. Their ethics have been passed on to my brothers and sisters. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to my submission. And I was consistent about what I talked about. I'm speaking to the increase in rates. For the first time in my life, I am extremely fearful of my future. My partner and I have had a local fitness centre here in Palmerston North for 38 years. We've worked long hours to develop our community gym. So we have a lot of people with special needs, senior people. With the economic stresses during COVID, and probably after the financial collapse about 12 years ago, we decided to sell or close our gym. The gym was for our retirement. Having sold the gym during COVID was not the best time to sell your business, but it was and our return was actually very minimal. So that was our retirement money gone. My partner is 15 years older than me, and my greatest fear is, how am I going to cope later on one pension? So we've been trying to live off two pensions for the last 4 years and are just coping. I think senior citizens deserve to have respect. I'll put that in capital letters. For the many years they have worked, paid their taxes, and own their own homes. I am one person, but I hope you can feel the fear about how I will financially cope in the future. So we expect you, our Palmerston North leaders, to make wise decisions in these very trying financial times. So there's one word there, fear. That's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Ann. We do have some questions for you. Are you happy to take up the questions, Mary Ann?
I don't really wish to.
You don't have to. You don't have to.
I'd prefer not to.
Wonderful.
I just keep my message simple.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your submission. Thanks, Mary Ann. I'd like to welcome and call Mr. Jeremy Neal to the microphone, please. Welcome, Jeremy. Submission number 1161.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and councillors. I you have a copy of my submission, so I won't go into it, but my main concern is with your 10-year plan is that council spending, from my perspective, seems to be out of control. And when you take both capital items and operational expenditure, it indicates it needs to be 15 of that might be nice, but can hardly be described as essential. I've monitored my rate bill for 34 years, and the compound rate of increase over that time is 4.2%, which, on what you're proposing, looks reasonable. But it did contain real growth in income for the council after adjusting for inflation and probably greater than wage growth at the same time. Just in case you don't understand what compound rate means, it means that on average over those 34 years, my rates went up 4.2% every year for 34 years. That sounds reasonable, but what I'm concerned about is when I looked at it for the last 10 years, it's gone up 6.3%, well ahead of inflation and well ahead of average wage growth. So you've had real income gains and you've spent it. And now you're proposing to do it even further. Given that I retired in that time, my income is down 41%. So I'm not feeling greatly enthused by your proposals. From 2021-22 to 2022-23, my Palmerston North City Council rates went up 30%, from 3,616 to 4,704, and over the last year they went up a further 7% to 5,047. You just seem to have an incredible appetite to spend and charge the ratepayers and citizens of the city. Now you're proposing an 11.3% and even more increases over the next 10 years, and this doesn't include the fact that you've taken nature calls off the council books and there's going to be another 1,000. Considering I'm paying 5,000 now, that's another 20%. It's just, you're just out of control in my view. Your document here makes some comments that infuriate me. On page 3, you make the claim that because you're facing interest rate increases, inflation, insurance, electricity and software cost increases, that somehow justifies an 8% increase in rates. Actually, it doesn't. We all face those same costs, and the fact is that most of us as citizens and residents and ratepayers have to reduce our wants to focus on our absolute needs so that we can pay those extra costs. And what I'm suggesting is that you need to do the same. Inflation, if you really think about it, is too much money chasing too few goods and services. And the aim to stop inflation is to reduce the demand for goods and services. You need to reduce your demand for goods and services by controlling your expenditure. Secondly, on page 27, you imply that you are keeping rates down by increasing the debt limit. God knows how you work that one out. From my perspective, you're deferring payment by rates, you're not removing it. In fact, the message of increasing interest rates is that you should be reducing debt, paying debt off, not borrowing more. As debt gets cheaper, you can raise the amount of debt. But you guys don't seem to understand that or are carried away with the projects that you think are important to you. Co-funding, I'm not sure. I don't think it will reduce rates if ratepayers get a levy, as they will with nature calls. The previous spokesperson spoke about, Mark Gunning spoke about the case of if you're getting co-funding from elsewhere and it's from the private sector, you're going to pay for it. On page 59, the other thing that annoys me is you express rates as a weekly cost. Now, I find that is an excuse to make it look as though it's cheap as a cup of coffee or something, and I object to it. And consequently, because of these things, I'm here today, and I haven't been for your last annual long-term plans over the last 34 years. So what do we need to look at? We need to look line by line very closely at operational costs and capital costs. I want the focus to be on what you're legally required to do. That's water, wastewater, stormwater, road maintenance, and some upgrades of earthquake-prone buildings. I'd like to try and maintain current assets. I was told that the bridge in Amberley Avenue was not maintained and will now need to be replaced, and that's a considerable capital upgrade. Now, if that is true, and you guys are the guys that will know it's true, that's an appalling lack of responsibility if you end up in that situation where you've not maintained something so that the capital cost has become significant. My submission does favour a shift to capital rates. Just in my own particular case, because the last rateable value, my land value went up 143%, the value of improvements went down 32%, despite my having spent a couple of $100,000 on the house, and the capital value had gone up 56%. So I sort of see capital value as more stable, and land value tends to fluctuate a bit more. And so, and the other thing was really a focus on deferring the capital projects, including the one at Porkchop Hill, the Awapuni Centre, and the other ones that are described on the same page. I tend to see them that you need to get the wastewater thing, or you've got enough costs ahead of you to get those organised before embarking on new projects, particularly if it involves borrowing significant sums of money. Now, I know that you've had a number of applicants who's talked very highly about one of these particular things, but I don't think in any survey you've done, you've ever looked at what their willingness to pay for those projects. And there is a form of economic analysis in terms of contingent value where you try and put a market price on non-market goods that might be useful to give you insights into how many of these are really supported by your ratepayers and residents. But I'll finish there. I see there's a bit of time for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neal. Yes, you are in fact correct, so we'll go to the Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Jeremy, for your submission. Are you aware what the annual household tax bill is?
No, I'm not aware of the annual household tax bill. Are you talking about central government taxes?
Yeah, just trying to do a comparison here because you've outlined a few things that rates cover, which is the annual rates is around 3,000. The annual tax is 37,000 per year. And also Amberley Ave, you say it was lack of maintenance.
No, I'm saying I was told it was lack of maintenance. I don't know whether that's true or not.
That's not true. So
okay, thank you for it.
It's heavy transport using it as, unfortunately, because we don't have a ring road, it's heavy transport using it as an.
What's the issue going to be with electric buses, which I gather are quite a bit heavier than diesel buses?
I'm unsure. But you do make a good point. I'm unsure. We don't run the buses, unfortunately. But
yeah, but there is a regional transport committee which you would have representation on. And yep. Are you telling me that your representatives were not heard?
They make the decision. Horizons, not us.
The committee makes the decision.
No, the Horizons Council makes the decision. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, Jeremy. Good to see you here after 34 years. Just wanted to ask and quite concur around your view that, borrowing when the cost of money is lower is a good approach. Do you expect that at any time over the next 10 years the cost of money will go down?
It's not going to go down in the short term. I expect it might go down in the longer term, but anyone who's tried to predict interest rates has been wrong, and one prominent economist talked about Monkey could do a better job than most commentators.
So given that we need to have a 10-year plan, how do you suggest we solve that problem and that we don't know when the rates are going to be low, but we do need to have an envelope?
You can put those projects out further, and maybe as you get close to that thing, you'll have another 10-year plan that you have to review in 3 years' time, and you can make changes then once the future is clearer. And you've got on top of projects such as your wastewater one.
So is your assertion that we would know 3 years, at least we can predict 3 years in advance where interest rates are going to go?
You're going to get some movement going some way, and it may be increasing, it may be not changing, or it may be declining. But you'll get a sense of which way we're moving, if we're moving at all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neal. We're just about out of time, so thank you for speaking to your submission, which now goes through to deliberations at the end of the month. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to invite and call Mr. Grant Stevenson to the microphone, submission number 1161. Welcome, Grant. Sorry, 1162.
Good afternoon. I'd just like to speak to a couple of points in my submission. It's once again the quality of the submissions that I've sat here and listened to might pale mine slightly. One is the rates and stuff like that. I already quibble now about what I get for my rates money. I live on a rural property, 1 hectare. We're self-servicing, water, stormwater, sewage. We don't get lights, don't get footpaths. I do have the privilege of having a recycling depot up the road in Ashurst. We have a local community library. We have a pool at the school. I'm happy to pay rates for all those sorts of things. I kind of wonder why it is that we are being targeted with such a hefty rate rise, because I don't see that you're going to give me any more services. The road's in good nick, so the cost of maintaining the road to my house is pretty negligible, unless you count in the end of Tremaine Avenue, of course. Got a bit of work out there to do. So for that, I kind of went along with the land value at the moment, because my land, from what I bought it for to what it is now, I don't know how they come up with the cost of it, but I can't make any money off a hectare. So it's not, to me, it's not good. No, there's no commercial value to owning it. It's the privilege of being able to live in the country, looking after ourselves pretty much. I'd just like to talk about, I went to a couple of public meetings, and I heard from some of the councillors there that you guys are looking at borrowing up to 250% of your debt or something. I can't quite remember how it is, and I was quite shocked that you were considering borrowing that amount of money and where you'd borrow it from. If you're raising the rates like you're raising the rates, would it not be better off to call your ratepayers the people you're borrowing money for to pay for your infrastructure and your upgrades and stuff like that, rather than put it into capital projects? In Ashurst, when we've wanted to do upgrades around the community centre, the pool and stuff like that, we've worked with the local councils and done barbecues, sausages. We've helped raise funds as the community. It sort of seems to be that the community's expecting you guys to fund everything, and I don't quite know. The upgrades on some of the community buildings, there's been a couple of speakers here already. There are a lot of venues around, community venues that are run by the council. Are they well, I mean, I don't know if you do these surveys, how well are they actually used? Are they not used well, so you don't put money into them, so you don't maintain them, and then suddenly there's a huge cost to get them up to speed, make them more attractive to get people to want to use them? I don't know how you go about sort of ascertaining what's required to either build new ones, knock ones down, rejuvenate ones that are there. And my other point is, with developers' contributions, you've made a couple of points in here about you wanted to drop, sorry. About developers' contributions. Developers are the guys that hook on to the existing systems that you have, which at the moment aren't really that fit for purpose because they're old infrastructure and you keep joining onto it, and it looks like the maintenance regime is not sort of keeping up with your projected growth. So is it unfair to ask for especially some of the greenfield developers for a larger contribution towards the asset they're now going to connect onto? I mean, they do stand to make a lot of money out of their developments and stuff like that. That's their right as a business opportunity. But the downside is the stuff that they put in is also going to get old and it's going to need maintenance. And how far down are you looking out as they need to contribute to what happens 20 years down the track, 30 years down the track? Is the next council after you guys going to come along and say, we need to whack everybody with $1,000 to pay for the new sewage system because we didn't ask for enough stuff up front to handle what we've allowed to be developed? And that's about it. Thank you for listening. Any questions? I'm open.
Thanks, Grant. Councillor Belden is first up with a question.
Thank you. Hi, Grant. Strange positioning. Just on our current policy, we recover the capital investment cost, but we don't recover the interest portion. So the interest portion for that investment is ratepayer funded over the life of that asset. We are proposing to increase the fee to recover the interest portion of that so that the entirety of it is funded by the developers. I wondered if you had a view on that distinction.
Yeah, I think it's... I suppose you'd have to look at the developers individually because the guys that are developing in-house that's already on land that's inside PNCC and they're just growing on a footprint, does their developments need to be the same as someone who wants to do a 300-house greenfield development and hook on to the existing network? And that's a council decision, isn't it? How you're going to charge for your all your costs.
So it could be sort of a portion to the payer or to the developer on a case-by-case
I think it's kind of fair enough to who it services or who gets the best service.
Great. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Grant. Just firstly to ask, were you aware that development contributions are differently treated for infill than they are for greenfield?
Oh, I would presume they would be.
Great.
I don't know how you proportion amounts as council, that's also.
I'm sure that can be followed up. Just wanted to ask, in your written submission, I was interested in the final kind of paragraph that you wrote on the back there where you're kind of talking about the majority and the minority, I think, is kind of where you're at. And you said, I would like to see council respect the whole, WHOLE, see council respect the whole and not the minorities, as it seems to do. And I just kind of wanted to know what you're getting at there.
What I was sort of getting at there is, I think the squeaky wheel gets oiled. So if I look at a couple of the last public meetings I've been to, Featherston Street's been high on the agenda for a lot of people in that one. And it seems that a smaller amount of people have managed to push it and get the Featherston Street cycle lanes, bus lanes, whatever it is, sort of thing, and then ground to a halt. A lot of people that live down Featherston Street and part of Featherston Street were kind of not into making it kind of silly that everybody down that street hadn't been contacted, because the meetings I went to, I think one of them there, probably 80% of the people put their hand up and said, didn't know about it till it happened. The first one, maybe 50% of the people knew it was happening. And it was that sort of like, that's what I mean, like this.
Yeah, no, thanks for that example. I guess so when we've got cases where the majority's interests might be in conflict with the minority's interests, like how should we approach that? Because what I'm reading here is kind of suggests that the minority just has to get pushed aside. If I was to read into that, is that what your view is?
No, not at all. I just wondered if the holistic look has been at it. I mean, you're always going to have two sides to any sort of discussions and stuff like that. And I just sort of sometimes wondered if the whole is not sort of. I think I got the impression from the meeting that if you don't do a submission, you're not helping out because you're not having a voice. If you don't sign a petition on, as an example, you're not having an input. So as council, if you only have 10 people reply and 4 of them don't want an answer, 3 of them do, and the others are don't really care, you're sort of going to look at, well, let's concentrate on the people that are actually interested, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a criticism or anything, it was just a whole as in all of us, all of the community,
So-
all of the ratepayers.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's helpful clarifying in that regard. So I guess about there being 90,000 of us all together, how many of the 90,000 do you think we need to engage with before we kind of do something?
I'd like to think that because you can always send a rate bill out every quarter, any information that you think would be necessary for the public to know, you could put something in it, so you're making the effort. Whether
Yeah.
people are going to listen to it or take notice, come back on it, if they don't know, they don't know. If they've made the opportunity for everybody to be aware of stuff, I just found from the public meetings, it seemed that they're seeing a lot of people would have been keen to know about it earlier than when it kind of became an issue for them.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Grant. Appreciate it. Mr. Chair.
Wonderful. Thanks again, Grant, for speaking to your submission, which now goes through to deliberations at the end of the month.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you to our guests in the chamber, councillors. We're back in the chamber at 4:00. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7?
Yeah, we're all good. William's 8, yeah.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Tēnā koutou katoa, nau mai hara mai. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen in the chamber, councillors and staff. Just before we start the LTP hearing, number 14 of 15 for this week, just a reminder to our guests in the building, if it is your first time, the bathroom is just through the link span, ladies on the left down the end and gentlemen on the right. Health and safety for evacuation purposes, if you have to evacuate the chamber, please use one of the 2 exits, the one directly in front of me, or the one to the left, and the staff will take care of all of our guests and staff in the other parts of the building. All council buildings are smoke-free, including e-cigarettes, and we also have a defibrillator located downstairs in the first floor. Proceedings for this afternoon, for all our submitters, I invite you all to come to the microphone directly in front of me, where you'll have 10 minutes to speak to your submission, and within that 10-minute envelope, if you'd like to save some time to allow the councillors to ask you any questions, please feel free to do so, and you don't have to answer any questions either. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to invite from the Manawatu Toy Library, Emma O'Shea and Lou Lynn, submission number 1210. Welcome to you both. I was just Emma to say welcome, Emma. So if you just touch the right-hand button in front of you and the red light should come on. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou, Mr Chairperson and councillors. Thanks for having me here. I'm here from the Manawatu Toy Library. My name's Emma O'Shea, and Lou Lynn, my colleague, unfortunately couldn't make it in the end due to various life admin getting in the way. So I'm here with my other colleague, Carmen up there, who's going to wave. She's on the Toy Library Committee with me, and baby Annabelle, who's also vocal in support of the Toy Library. And my daughter Ivy is there as well, a representative of our Toy Library community. So some of you know about the Toy Library, hopefully all of you after you've read the submissions. We have been around for almost 50 years, and our current premises is down opposite Freedom Print and Design on Church Street. And as you can guess, we're all about community connection, reducing social isolation, and providing services for families and children in Palmerston North. What Lou was going to say is, in introducing herself, and I'm going to share with you, that she was previously a Palmerston North resident in early, maybe 2010, when she was recently out of university, and she went away after working here in food technology research. She went away and had a child somewhere else, and came back with her husband and child, and was delighted to find out that there was a toy library when she was in Palmerston North, when she was preparing to come back here with a view to raising her family and settling down here for long term, that stage of life. And she works at Fonterra in food technology, and she says many of her colleagues and PhD students and people who are working there appreciate the Toy Library service, and the fact that Palmerston North is such a family-friendly place where people are connected and where there's activities and services relevant and engaging for young people with young families. So that's one aspect of our service, providing welcome for migrants, for people moving around from other places in New Zealand or from overseas. And a lot of our families are working here either in the healthcare, in research, or in the army as well. We're quite often moving from other places, perhaps without their toys or without their household goods, so they really appreciate our service. Anyway, enough about us. We are here to talk about community as an important aspect, and to ask that you as the decision makers continue to support community sector through funding. We love the community support plan and the continued commitment to support through the strategic priority grant and the small grants development, community development small grants. And any other funding for community sector is really appreciated, and we think you get great value for money when you consider all the volunteers that are involved in these organisations and all the wonderful work that goes on. We're just one example at the Toy Library. We know the Toy Library is one example of amazing community work that's happening, and one community organisation of many that are part of the social fabric of our city, and we know that you all care about that deeply as well. We're particularly keen to say that we like the goal, the safe and connected community goal. That's really where we think that's a great space for the council to be putting resources into, as well as the environmentally friendly, sustainable and resilient city, as that's important to us as Toy Library members and Toy Library people who keep the thing going. I guess that's enough rambling from me. Any questions?
Thanks very much, Emma. Yes, I've got questions, a couple of questions. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Emma. Lovely to see you this evening. Thanks for bringing your support crew. I had a question on your support for the proposed community support plan, and you talked about the amount of dollars available for community funding,
Yes.
advocating to at least see that cost of inflation mechanism. We've had other submissions asking us to significantly increase our community support for community groups through strategic priority grants, etc. Would you support that?
Increasing funding, yes, I would support that. As you know, the cost of living is affecting everyone, including community organisations. So even to keep the basic services or the same services running costs more, with lease, with electricity, with everything, buying staples and sellotape, anything we need at the Toy Library, everything costs more. So just to provide the basic service costs more than it did 3 years ago, and there's always more to do as well. So yeah, we'd love to do more. We feel like we're scraping by, but we can do that. We'd like to have more a bigger pot, and then more organisations can access it, hopefully, and get more funding, which then.
And you talk about the council gets great value for money from funding community organisations. What do you mean by that? What's the value proposition?
Well, I think that, if we take our own example, we're at Toy Library, we're a small organisation, total budget of the year is about $45,000, and we have one part-time staff member working about 12 hours a week paid, but then there's another, thousands of hours really in a year of volunteer time, people giving up their time because they want to be involved in the connected in the community. They want connection for themselves. They want to facilitate connection and services for other people as well. So I think that's where I really see the impact of the council dollar coming in, because it's magnified by the kind-hearted people who are involved with all these organisations.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Emma. You noted in your submission that you thought we perhaps wouldn't hear as many voices from parents and carers of young families, and I think reflecting on who we've been hearing from today, that has been, and yesterday and the day before, that has been true. Are there particular needs, do you think, of young families that perhaps haven't been considered in the plan, or that you think we need to put more emphasis on?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I don't know about particular things that are missing from the plan, but I think in general, I would say parents, carers of young families want a safe place to live. They want to know that their children are going to be able to play with their neighbours, to walk to the local dairy or maybe even in a town. They live close enough safely. And yeah, that's sort of in the immediate as they're raising their children. And then for the future, that it continues to be a safe, I'm going to say safe and connected now, it's on my mind from the safe and connected, but that continues. That's why people choose to be here to raise their families, and that would, I'd say, be the desire that they have going forward for their for their children growing up, as well as that there's jobs, educational opportunities, and resources and support for whatever life throws at them and their children. I guess that's the general feeling, I'd say, rather than specific things.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gemma, to yourself and the whānau at Toy Library. Appreciate your submission and speaking to it today, which now goes through to the deliberations at the end of the month. Wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Turn this off.
And again, it gives me great pleasure to invite Taupo Tani to the microphone, please, from Amanaki STEM Academy. Tēnā koe Taupo, lovely to have you back in the chamber, and it's submission number 1026.
E te malolo te whare tātou, e mamua watu whaftai, the chairman tātou Fitzgerald, nā whukitakitaki tātou ko the mayor, ai mamua tu watu whaftai ki rangitani o manawa tū mo te tukumei o te laukele tēnei tue tātou. E watu whuki whaftai ki te tuam te awananga tēnei.
Thank you. Just acknowledging the our chamber, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm standing on behalf of our director who couldn't be here and several of our board members who will be here, so it ended up me being taking on the short straw. I'm not going to read the full submission. I understand most of you would have read it. If you have any, if you feel like you want me to read some part of it, I can. Otherwise, I'll just highlight some points that are relevant and important. And hopefully there's a lot of questions later. And yes, so we have presented here before, and I'm sure some of our current council members would have understood what Amanaki STEM Academy is and still operating. In a nutshell, ASA is probably the first academy of its kind in New Zealand. It's homebred out of a kitchen and pretty much, I guess, grew by the demands of the community. We have currently 125 official students on our books, representing over 66 families, Pacifica families. So, in a nutshell, it's about 20% of our Pacifica students in Palmerston North, and it's something that for Palmerston North City Council to be proud of. We are often asked to see how we can help other regions to start something like this. We also want to acknowledge the part that PNCC play in our existence, and we appreciate the council members who came to our graduation last year to see what it's all about, and to see, it's not just about a student, but it's a family group that they represent. For our submission, we just wanted to highlight the fact that we really wanted to support PPCT in their submission for an extension. Part of that, if Manaki STEM Academy, who have a separate venue, were to operate out of that, the issue would have been pretty much evident by now that there's not enough space. It's already not enough space, but so we do take the spill off from PPCT in terms of the place being available for communities, but we have to have the students have first priority. And so we fully support the submission that PPCT is putting forward, and that would definitely benefit not just us, but Pacifica and then the wider community at large. Part of our submission that we put through is to also look at how in its existence or continued existence to see how Amanaki can still exist beyond in the city of Palmerston North. We currently just live by whatever funding that we have. We would like to see how we can fit into the long-term plan. And as I mentioned earlier, we are leading in the STEM sector, and I think there's something to be accounted for. And we would really appreciate if there's ways or even how to be guided to be included in the long-term plan, especially in the multi-year sort of funding, which is really what we want to make sure we can at least have some access to. At the moment, we're just living month by month, and it's very hard to progress beyond. But we appreciate whatever help that we have had from City Council, and we'll appreciate being guided by the council if there's ways that we can access some of those multi-year funding, and we will definitely make Palmerston North proud in terms of the STEM STEM education in New Zealand. Just as an aside, we just want to also acknowledge a lot of our Pacifica group that actually help keep us going. And I understand, like with New Waka, they just kind of like a big brother that we lean on, and I understand they've also made a submission. And so we acknowledge what they're doing, and I'll probably support their submission. I haven't heard what they are, but I know what they are. They give us a lot of their resources. And I guess lastly, something that we wanted to make sure that, that we actually do support the developments of Te Motua or Poutoa. And I'll leave it at that. But, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I may not be the right one to answer, but I'll do my best. If not, we're on 59 Queen Street, if you feel like you want to come in, ask questions.
Beautiful. Tēnā koe taupo. Yes, we do have a couple of questions for you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming and presenting, and I'll take you up on that. I'll come visit you. You've put in your submission that you'd like to request council help you locate a venue you can suitably operate out of. I just want to understand, is your thinking there that you'd like to operate out of a council-owned facility, or more that you just want our support in finding an appropriate location?
I think the venue is really important for us. At the moment we're paying for it out of where we have very limited in terms of the funds. If the council say, we've got a building for you, we wouldn't say no. Or if you say we can put money towards a facility, we have to make sure that we can cater for the numbers that we have. Especially we run our program after hours, we want to make sure it's a safe place as well. So it's not just any place, but we wouldn't say to fund or a physical place.
Yep, of course. And just to understand where you're at in this process, is this your first port of call, or have you already engaged a lease agent to see what might be available around the city?
Oh no, in terms of no, it hasn't been our first port of call. We've signed some contracts with science research groups, and they help bring in funds. We're always begging PPCT if they've got any spare funds at the end of the month, and the parents also do fundraising. With the changing government, we are not able to get any answers from the Ministry of Pacifica people. They funded us a lot the last few years. Their funding, their grant process is on hold. We're not sure when. Yeah. So.
Wonderful. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your submission. You're not currently receiving any funding from council, are you?
We had a scholarship, I think a 1,000 scholarship for the prize giving, and I think we also had a $5,000 towards the holiday program last year.
But nothing towards your ongoing operational costs?
No,
okay.
No.
And have you had a meeting with the community development fundraising team?
I think we had some. I think Kerry would be able to help us on that one, but the options that were given to us, that we go through the DIA system, and that nothing came of that. We got declined, and
Okay. Well, I'm sure we can hook you up with the council fundraising advisors to see what you might be eligible for within funds that are already available at council.
Appreciate that.
In terms of the internship that you mentioned, you didn't mention it, but it's in your, is that in particular areas, are you thinking?
I'll do the best of what I think it is. Yeah, no, I'm going to have to say that I'm probably not fully clued on that one, other than I know during the summers we have trips to certain science outfits, whether it's NIWA or Space Lab or Fonterra. Yeah, I could be wrong on that one, but my apologies for not.
No, that's all right. I can follow
yeah.
up with you later. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Topol, for coming in and presenting to us. So your presentation is going to now be forwarded to the end of month deliberations by council. But lovely to have you in the chamber again today. Apologies, councillors.
Off tape.
And again, it gives me pleasure to invite our next presenter, Lisa Wild, and the submission number is 1175. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thank you for having me.
Sorry, just the right-hand button. My apologies, Lisa.
Yeah, better. Thank you again. Kia ora. I think rates are good value for money, but I think they could be shared more equitably. My rates increase would be highest under CV, yet I still strongly believe that this is the fairest option. LV is too blunt an instrument. I'm not going to read out my whole submission, but I would like to use one little part of it to illustrate the reasons why I think LV is unfair. It's a calculation based on the size of the land alone, not whether the land is fit to build on. My cousin lives in Savage Crescent. It's protected as a heritage area under the district plan. Even if she wanted to subdivide her section, she couldn't. My property is on a slope shaped like a triangle with a house smack bang in the middle, and no developer would want to take that on. My lovely neighbours are an even better example of how unfair I think the LV system is. They're both in their 80s. They've worked incredibly hard to buy their house. This is a very modest house, 85 square metres. They live frugally. They're wonderful gardeners. They eat largely from the fruit and veg they grow in their garden. They feed half the neighbourhood as well. Their home, like mine, is small, but their section is bigger. It's about 850 square metres. Like mine, their section is triangular and on a slope. If the council stays with LV, their rates would increase to $3,631 a year. That's a big rates bill for a couple living on their pension. Way more than the people around the corner who live in a brand new $1.2 million townhouse on a much smaller block of land, who are paying half the amount of rates. The hybrid option would soften the blow a little for my neighbours. It would keep their rates similar to what they are now, but which is $3,389. Under CV, that would drop to $2,864. I believe that there are many people across the city in a similar position. These are the types of homes that are typically available to those of us with lower household incomes who can least afford to be carrying a comparatively larger share of the city's rates. The hybrid option does little to ease the burden on ratepayers who are negatively impacted by land value. It's a cop-out. I fully support the move to reduce the discount for lifestyle blocks. We're all citizens and we should all be paying more equitably for the many services the council provides. And lastly, I urge you to be bold. The decisions you make here around the table have a far bigger impact on our day-to-day lives than anything central government does. Think about the legacy you're leaving and think about the city we're living in now. If you stop spending, our city goes backwards. I don't want to see that. I want you to keep spending. I want you to be more ambitious. I want Palmy to be somewhere I'm proud to call home. Thank you. Any questions?
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Lisa, for your presentation. Yes, we do have a question. Councillor Johnson. Oh, sorry, it was Councillor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Lisa. In your submission, you said that if we were to move to capital value, that we would be able to phase it in.
Yeah.
And therefore, you don't see a particular advantage in going to hybrid because that's part of the phasing in. Was that what you meant?
Yeah, well, the hybrid is, I mean, it's still a large portion of that is land value. I think moving to CV and then phasing it in, it has a similar impact.
So how?
But it eventually ends up being better, I think, for people who are on 100% CV.
So how long would you think we should take to be phasing it in, a change like that?
Oh, I think it's a decision for you. But, you know, I think other councils have typically used 3 years or so.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Councillor McLeod.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Lisa, for coming in, and thanks for the quality submission. It's not every day that we get a lot of people coming in to tell us to spend more on stuff. So my question is largely around, you know, the same question that I asked other people that have told us to reduce. What if we were to spend more, or what are the sort of things that we should be spending more on and less on, and that sort of thing?
Look, I think the long-term plan is sound. So when I say spend more, I mean spend to the plan. I know a lot of people are coming in and asking you to spend less. I would love to see the council upping its budget for maintenance and those things that do make a really big impact to people every day. Footpaths, sweeping the streets, trees, all that stuff that constantly there are the complaints that we all see. That would be great to put more money into those areas because $10 million there could make a much bigger impact on people maybe than $10 million somewhere else. But I wouldn't want you to tell you where to stop spending.
Probably another question. Out of the plan that we've proposed to the community, and some of the projects that we proposed, be it this, the arena, the shared path, and that sort of thing, what will be in there that should be pushing?
I would like to see the cycle paths go ahead at pace. It is taking far too long. I've lived here for nearly 9 years. We still have no joined up network of cycleways in the city that are separated. I started riding my bike around town when I first moved here. I don't do that anymore. Like, I grew up in Palmerston North. I learnt to ride a bike here when I was 12. But that was back in the days of carless days. People didn't all own 2 or 3 cars per household. There weren't the cars parked on the streets. It was safe for us to be riding around as kids. It's not that now, and I don't feel that way as an adult. And I've had so many near misses that I have stopped riding my bicycle. And in fact, I'm learning to drive. But I would far rather bike.
Thank you. It's very helpful to know. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you. I did have a question about your cycling thing, but I will just say I really like that you call them cyclopaths.
Yes.
In your comments about community facilities, you say, and I just want to tease out what this means. It seems as if many of the community centres are realising their full potential, but some of the city assets sit empty for large parts of the day.
Are not realising their full potential. So I think with the community centres, there's on the website there is a survey which has been done, or like a study looking at all of them and how they are being used, and it does seem that a lot of the community centres are not well used, could be perhaps used for other things. That's why I've said, look, maybe we could be selling some of those. If the intention is for the libraries to become community centres, by and large, maybe we should be investing more, you council, should be investing more in those areas and looking at the current community centres and seeing how they're managed.
Right. So there's an important knot missing in your submission there. That makes sense. And so you're suggesting a kind of a holistic overview of community facilities to go, how have we got the location right if they're used for everything?
Yeah.
Could their mixed use model
So look,
be applied?
I live in Roslyn. There's the Rangiora Community Centre around the corner from me, which is sometimes, at some parts of the day, it's very well used. A lot of the time it's empty. There's a library, you know, only a few blocks away as well, which we're leasing out. You know, maybe that could be...
Yeah, good idea.
Maybe that could be merged.
Thank you. Thanks, Lisa. Great submission. Enjoyed reading it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lisa, for your
Thank
submission.
you.
Appreciate your time. It gives me pleasure to invite Dylan Raj, Hockey Maratua Incorporated General Manager. Welcome, Dylan. Submission number 1186. And Dylan, I just want to give us a nod when you would like us to play the video. Wonderful. And welcome. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much, and appreciate the opportunity to present. Firstly, would like to back and support Sport Manawatu's submission. We had a fair input into that, so we'd like to support that as well. From our side, Hockey Manawatu, we have about 8,000 members. We have contact with about 100,000 junior hockey players over the year through in-school delivery, and 1,600 of those, or 1,600 of those, go through our turf on Sunday. The premise of our submission is around asset maintenance, and I think it's probably an appropriate chance to have a look at the asset we're talking about. So thank you. If we can play the video. Thank you. That was a 20-minute video that we managed to shorten down. So, thanks. That gives everyone an idea who haven't been there what the turfs are. So there's two turfs there, and there's a turf at Massey that council owned, and we leased them off the council. With that comes an issue of maintenance and also replacing the turf. They were laid down in 2017. The next plan re-maintenance or relaying of the turf is 2027 on one turf and 2029 on another turf, and I'd like that to be kept in the back of our minds when we discuss long-term plans. We have an opportunity as well to increase our maintenance around that, so that turf 2 could be extended a bit longer, so we don't have to invest in 2930, and that's part of the submission that we would like to make in terms of what that maintenance could look like. The second part of our submission is the twin turfs changing rooms. The bottom part, the changing rooms, are council owned. The top half is Hockey Manawatu owned. The changing rooms are pretty outdated at the moment, and they're not also fit for purpose. We have a gender diversity policy that we are renewing and looking at making it more current, and that will bring a few other areas that will need support in around the council-owned changing rooms. Upstairs is our pavilion, which is also outdated. We've got a fair few issues there, but we're a little bit worried in investing on infrastructure if we're not sure what's happening at the council-owned part downstairs. Point 4 for us is the facility maintenance, lawn, spraying, rubbish, grooming. That's all on our cost at the moment, and we get that. What we're hoping is to look around some of the other assets that are around. Next door to us is cricket, whether we can collaborate with them in terms of how our rubbish could be collected and save costs there, where we can then use them in hockey programs and continue growing sports opportunities for our juniors. We have a storage shed as well, which is also not fit for purpose at the moment, and with that comes movement of assets from there, movement of equipment from there back into our changing rooms, which causes bigger headaches in terms of storage space. So with running programs, we're at capacity now, and we're continually growing at about 12.5% a year. So I'm a little bit worried what 2-3 years would look like in terms of asset maintenance, relaying the turf, and the actual building infrastructure. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for your presentation. Rose, got a couple of questions. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for coming in to present. So the Turf 1, Turf 2 replacements are in the long-term plan at the moment.
Thank you.
Wasn't me. But you're proposing an increased maintenance budget so that we could defer the upgrade of the second turf.
It would, I believe, be prudent from us to provide that option. So if we could increase the maintenance on Turf 2, so in terms of when leaves disintegrate, that leaves debris and it wears the turf. So if we could increase the maintenance budget around that, and what that exactly looks, I'll have to come back to you on that.
Okay.
It could defer that by a few more years.
Because that was my question, what would be the number that would, what would be the increase for maintenance that would get us extra use out of that asset?
Awesome. My apologies. I'm 3 weeks into the role, and I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. I had a second question, just about the ownership structure of that building. I understand, so council owns the bottom bit, which is the changing rooms, and the other bit is owned by somebody else?
That's my understanding. The bottom is council and the top is Hockey Manawatu.
Yes.
We are looking to put some back into the infrastructure on the top, but we're not sure what we can do until the bottom is sorted out. Just in case that we do go ahead and do what we want to do on the top, and then the collaboration around the bottom is different.
But council is the landlord on the bottom bit at least, so we should focus on that.
Yep, great.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. So I had a question around the changing rooms. Did I hear you say, sorry, Councillor Bowen, that they're already in the plan to be upgraded? Oh, just the turfs. Okay. So I missed what you said. Was there?
Can we add the changing rooms?
Well, I guess that's my question. So are you aware of any scheduled upgrade?
I'm not aware. I will go back and have a look.
Okay.
But before I came here, I went through all our notes on what we had for the LTP and any submission before, and we haven't there, but I will follow up.
So what are the issues with the changing rooms?
So we've got two. So for example, on a Sunday, we have 1,600 junior members go through. We've got 2 female toilets and 2 male toilets. I do acknowledge that there are public toilets off-site, but for 1,600 players going through, that's a big requirement.
Okay, so it's the size of the facility, the fact that it's outdated, although it is a bit grim.
It is a bit grim. It is a bit outdated, and also the further part of this is the gender issue in terms of whether we can be a bit more current with identifying with players that identify not female.
Yes, a more unisex facility.
Yes,
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I expect we will look into that and get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming in, and thanks for taking up the role in the community.
Thank you.
Just wanted to see if you had any information you could share with us around utilization of the facility up at Massey to understand what's been happening there and what the outlook might be.
Great. So, and again, fairly new, but Massey has been a big topic for us. Massey is our international turf. It's a partnership between us, Massey, and Council. The partnership between us and Massey is growing every day. Council is a little bit reluctant to get in the operational side of it. There is a bit of an issue there, and I'm glad you brought up that question in terms of the changing rooms. The pavilion structure is still not done, and that was part of the MOU that was initially signed off. So we're also hoping that Council can help facilitate that a bit better with the three parties. So at the moment, it's just two parties that are engaging. In terms of usage, we've had an international game there, and it's been used for our club season and our intercity season quite a bit. Exact numbers I'm not sure about, and I can get that back to you, but there is that asset is the avenue to bring international and national fixtures to Palmerston with the HMI.
Great, thanks. Yeah, it'd be great to see that information.
Right.
Mr. Chair.
Thanks again, Raj, and thanks to Hoki Manawatu as well. I appreciate you speaking with us today, which now goes through to deliberations at the end of the month.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome. And it gives me great pleasure to invite Roy Tankersley and Judy Seacombe, Pathways Presbyterian Church, submissions 1220 and 1226. Welcome, Roy. Welcome, Judy. Maybe just tap the right-hand side of your front, the console in front of you. A red light should appear. Wonderful. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Roy Tankersley, and I convene the Property Committee of the Pathways Presbyterian Church. And our parish operates from 3 sites at present, St Andrews in the CBD, St David's in Roslyn, and of course St Mark's in near the Awapuni village. We've had our challenges. All sites have been subject to closure at various times in the last 10 years or so because of earthquake restrictions and things like that. So the city site, St Andrews, has been fully operational since strengthening was completed in October 2022. But both St David's and St Mark's sites have been strengthened in part to enable church and community activity to continue. Both sites will have areas that are not strengthened and are out of bounds and marked for demolition. At the end of 2004, St Mark's and St Andrews became one single parish, and I've been involved with the parish since moving here into 2003 it was. Yeah. There was a further merger in 2021 with St David's, hence the 3 sites. We knew that each of these mergers was going to involve a reassessment of our goals and aspirations to listen to the community around us. So to this end, the parish commissioned Liz Ward of Massey University to conduct a research survey. This was in 2023, so that we are updated on the needs of the communities in which we live. The parish has had a presence at Awapuni since the 1960s. The fact that the council has had the foresight to see value in taking over the whole site at St Mark's has delighted us. Of course, the buildings that we occupy are in the name of the Presbyterian Church of Aotearoa in New Zealand, and alterations and extensions must meet the approval of this national body. But our focus has always been the people and having buildings that best serve the needs of the parish and the surrounding community. We believe that the site at St Mark's is a one-time, lifetime opportunity to put community needs as a priority. So, on behalf of the Pathways Church, the Property Committee supports the development of a comprehensive Western community hub as a response to our previous local submissions requesting these facilities be primarily used for community activities. And this is a continuation of our dreams and hopes. And we look forward to seeing the site used to meet the current and future needs of the growing population on the side of the city. Kua mutu ine pito pito korero. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Kia ora. Judy, would you like to speak?
Hi, yes, I'm Judy. I'm a parish clerk at Pathways Church. I support everything Roy said. I'm not going to hold you up much longer. My meter will be running out soon. So I would just like to say that the thought of you developing a unique site for the community to come together, and listening to some of the previous submissions, there's obviously a need for, like, you know, toy library to be there, and several other people need places. So if you created a very unique structure and recreation area on that site, that will be absolute must for that community, a real focus point for that community to come together. It's a big site, so you've got lots of potential there. So I would like to say I support that. You will have a facility that will cater for large events in the community, but also as an emergency facility in the event of any other emergencies happening, hopefully not. So in conclusion, we strongly support, this parish strongly supports the development of this hub and the recreation area as a key focus point for people of every colour and culture. I think you've got an amazing opportunity, and I look forward to seeing what you can plan and put up there for us. So thank you for hearing our submissions.
Wonderful. Thank you both very much. There's a number of questions here. Is that okay with you both? Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Judy and Roy. I don't know if you've been following the submissions that we've been receiving, but we've certainly had a variety of opinions as to whether or not we've got it right in terms of what we've proposed for a community hub at Awapuni. Did you have any comments on the design that we consulted on, or you know, anything more specific about whether you think we've got the envelope of spending right, or you know, the concept, I suppose?
The concept looked great. We've got photos of it up inside the church at St Andrews. I guess it's a case of how far you can stretch your dollars to create a facility that has flexible space, so that different groups can use the facility at different times.
Yes, I think flexibility is really important, and to make sure that that there is flexibility, because the needs of the community are going to change over the years, and the sorts of groups that are there, you know, that are wanting to use the place, and to having storage facilities that are available for the community groups to use, so that there is no hassle when they come to, you know, occupy the building.
I guess the challenge for you is to actually cater for all the age groups, you know, have somewhere for elderly people to gather, have somewhere for children to gather, have the op shop. There's so many needs in that community.
And I'm not sure whether this is on the plan or not, but thinking about needs like showers as well as a toilet block, so that there might be some sort of emergency within the community where a group of people would benefit from, you know, having a shower facility and things of that sort.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your submission. Just given you both have a significant history and connection to the site, I want to understand what your views would be if we didn't end up using the entire site for a community hub and there was some surplus land, whether you'd be open to it being used for another purpose, or if you're steadfast that it must be a community hub for the entire location, e.g. social housing if we had a package left over on the side.
My thought is that it should all be for the community facility with recreation areas. And I guess you've got to provide parking too. What do you think, Roy?
Yes, I think so. I think that the whole site really needs to be used for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Just wanted to hear your opinion.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you both for your submission and coming to speak to it. Roy, in your comments, you said you want to see it primarily used for community purposes, and I wondered what you meant by that. If that meant, was there potential to include some retail space? You mentioned the op shop or some other kind of tenantable space within the footprint.
Community use for the groups in the community. So it might be a men's shed or an op shop. You know, things that are needed by the people that live there.
Mm-hmm. So no to commercial use?
I think community use.
Community use.
I agree.
Okay, thank you both.
Unless you want to be creating a bit more money coming in for you, but...
that was my thinking, that it might
yes,
create
I
a bit
can
more
hear
money
that.
coming in.
Yes, yes.
Would that change your view if it was creating a bit more money coming in?
No.
Right, doesn't-
No, because, I mean, our involvement with that site has always been care and support of the community.
Mhm.
And to have that ethos carried through into your new building, I think is where we would like to see you going.
So just to tease that out then, what about if it was like a GP or something like that?
He'd be, I should say, not he.
Yes.
She would be paying for the use of the rooms. Is that what you're
Yes.
suggesting?
So that'd be kind of commercial, but also community, would it?
Having a health facility that was provided free would be even better.
You're going to get us into trouble. Okay, thank you for trying with that one for me.
Thank you very much for your submission today. Speak to you both, Roy and Judy, Mihi Nui Kia Kora and the Pathways Presbyterian Church. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'd like to now invite to the microphone Leslie Shaw, and the submission number is 1174. Welcome, Leslie. Wonderful. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I take it that you have all read what I wrote, which is not very long. My interest in your development, proposed development at Awapuni, is in creating resilient communities. One of the things we have seen, particularly in the last 15 months with severe weather events, is the way communities respond. And one of the things that we know is that strong community relationships before a community event creates much more resilient response after an event. And I think that what you are proposing at the site in Awapuni to create a hub will vastly strengthen the community and the resilience in that part of the city. My involvement on the site has been largely through the op shop, which is not an op shop like other op shops, because it's not there to raise money. It is there to provide a service for low-cost clothing. It began in 1991, which many of you will remember as the year when the mother of all budgets created havoc in many low-income households. And that shop began as that, in response to that. And it is still very well used. So it's there to provide a low-cost service and not primarily to raise funds. The funds that are raised through the $4 an item clothing go back into various community support other community ventures, some in the locality, but all in Palmerston North. So I want to encourage you to include in the space there the op shop, or space for an op shop, because I think this kind of service, this kind of facility does increase the resilience in a community. One of the significant things that we know from decades of the ups and downs of economic life, is that we need to always care for those who have the least. And this is one of the ways of doing it. The op shop as it operates now is not necessarily how it would continue if it was in a council-owned space or council-provided space. It would need to change the way it is structured and the way it is governed. And the Pathways Presbyterian Church, which runs the op shop, would be prepared to do that because it is a service which strengthens the community and underlines the resilience of the community. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I don't have any questions on the list, but I'm just wondering, Leslie, and Annette, would you like to remain where you are? Because if there's no questions, Annette, would I be able to invite you to speak to your submission next?
With your permission, Mr. Chair, we'll have Janine next.
Sure.
I'm referring to both Leslie and Janine in mine, you see.
Right. Okay, sure. Okay. Wonderful, that's fine. Thank you so much, Leslie. So Janine Gribben, welcome Janine, submission number 1041.
Oh, you can stay.
If you just like to tap the right-hand side button on the console there, it lights up and...
Kia ora, everybody.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much for squeezing me in at the last moment. I just wanted to partially commend the council on where we're going with this. It's fabulous to see that you've committed to creating a community hub. We all know that community hubs are really, really important. We all know what Kelvin Grove is and some of the problems that there are associated with not having those spaces. So I'd like to just say that I think this is the most fabulous idea. Listening to Leslie talk about the op shop, that's embodying your sustainability strand. But I think what I see here is, from an entrepreneurial point of view, is that the vision isn't bold enough. And I don't think it's very creative. You pull out your strands where you talk about innovation and a growing city, a creative and exciting city, a connected and safe community, and a sustainable and resilient city. You're not kind of looking to embody that in how you're presenting it. I hear from a lot of people, they come into the cafe, they talk about different things. They know how this vision's been presented is frankly, it's mundane and a little bit boring. And there's a really, really, really exciting opportunity to really embrace what the city wants to achieve in a little microcosm of excitement. People would, I think, look with a lot of envy as to what happens in Awapuni. It's a really exciting community. I haven't stayed there for that long. I haven't invested as much as I have in that community, not without getting the rewards that come from that really close-knit and really exciting things that happen there. And there's a lot of magic makers there, and there's a lot of ability to actually have an opportunity to do something that shines quite differently to what we do in Palmerston at the moment. We've got some not so great press about we're a bit dull, a bit boring. I think that this is a chance to really grab some excitement and put some sparkle into what we do, and to really pull some of those strands through into one place to show what it's all about. We are on the cusp of a huge change. AI will change how we live and grow. This is an opportunity to really think how a space like that will impact into the future. And I think that the community presence is really, really important. And I think what's kind of missing from a business person's point of view, there is no village plan. We've been banging on about this I've been there for 8 years, been banging on about it for 8 years. It'd be really awesome to see a bit of a plan going on. I can see that, I don't know how set the building, the picture that went out in the public, the bathing things with the sort of slightly cultural thing on the wall, an inward-looking building, not an outward-looking, not embracing the community, not looking out, not ecologically beautiful. I can see, that causing potential problems if there isn't a plan for the community and how we're going to react and live and be within that space. And I just think that we need a bit more excitement around what this potentially can be and showcase. And I think that the beauty of the community and all the things that will shine through can actually be shown as something really special. And if we get kind of a building like we've got, we'll probably miss one of the greatest opportunities this city could have of putting itself at the forefront of something. We've got Savage Crescent and all that beautiful stuff that happened there. We could do some more stuff. We are on the cusp of a huge change, and really important that it's looked at in a whole way, and that community and what that will bring, and the excitement and the pulling together of all these strands, if it's looked at well, can bring. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Are you happy to take a question? Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. I'm just wanting to raise, we've had a lot of feedback today in particular from people who are really concerned around the cost of living crisis and concerned around their rates increase, and have been urging us to pull back on some of the non-essential spending and what many are terming nice to have spending. The Awapuni Hub has got quite a big price tag, and I'm just interested to understand whether you've got a view about the current price tag, or whether you think that we should be looking at moderating that, just given the current economic environment.
I think that people are always going to be worried about things economically. The reality is that this is an opportunity to create and do something. There's nothing, I mean, I would never want to see a budget cut, but there's nothing to say that it can't be far more exciting and innovative in what it is able to produce. I think that people will talk about councils going back to basics, moving back to basics, but the reality is if you want a creative and exciting city, you're going to need to invest in that. And people don't go, and people that we're trying to attract, a lot of the theory of what this plan is about is around creative cities, and that's about bringing talent and creative and authenticity to a city, and you don't get that by talking about the roads.
You don't get that if you what, sorry?
By talking about roads. People don't move to a city because they've got a nice road. They move to a city because exciting and interesting and innovative things happen there.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question prompted by what you said around we need an overall plan, because we have heard that before. Do you think there's some merit in actually just pushing this out just a period so we can actually get the overall concept for the community centre and the overall suburb shopping centre, to actually do that work first before we actually make this major investment?
At the risk of sounding like I'm having a dig, I think that yes, there does need to be a plan put in place and there does need to be work done on it, but it doesn't have to be a long drawn out. There are people in the community, there are lots of ideas, there are just things that need to be pulled together and looked at. And I think that, planning and never doing isn't a good thing either. So I think it's really important that it is looked at as a whole, but that it's not a long drawn out, tedious.
Got it.
Yeah, no, because we know there's people there, the community. There's lots of thinking about what people want, and I can see if it's not developed. When I say not developed well, you can just see like potential issues of traffic and all sorts of different things. So there does need to be something more cohesive, but I don't think it has to be a great big overblown,
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Isabella.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Janine. And just picking up on the village plan idea as well, geographically, what are you thinking would be the reach of that throughout the suburb versus the village? And aside from the hub/library/defence centre, what else do you think is missing that we could bring to the fore if we pursued something like that?
I think that just in general excitement, and we're out out west. I think I'm still banging on about it, and I still haven't managed to achieve it. And I probably maybe it'll be my swan song. It'd be really nice to have a wayfinder on the road to say the river's down the end of the road. There's a lot of really simple things that could be done, and you've got some fantastic people that work in your community, like Laura at the library, and I've forgotten his name. Yeah, there's some really, really amazing people. But it'd be really nice if you guys could put a few signs up and just some, some simple things that don't take a lot of money, but just generate a little bit of vibe and excitement. I'm not talking about putting planters everywhere, little boxes and things. I think there's far more interesting things that can be done.
Bit of placemaking.
One of the examples is those lovely entranceways we got to Awapuni. They should have been a little bit more song and dance and a bit more planting and tying the river to that. We're a stone's throw from the river. We see nothing or feel nothing of the river. I painted a mural on the side of the wall, about the mirror. But it's a lovely and exciting place to live, and there's so much going for it. So just, the community will get out there and they'll do it. But it just needs a bit of and we've developed and we've delivered as a community. We've delivered on lots of little projects, but there needs to just be more cohesiveness and a more just more looking at it as a whole, and really I guess looking at the future as well, because there are changes, lots of changes coming.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks so much again, Janine, for your submission. Really appreciate it. And so I've handed over to yourself, Annette Nixon, present submission number 687.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Councillors. Kia ora. I'm not speaking directly to my submission, except that I'm in support of the Western Community Hub. But what I am doing is picking up on the fact that I was here on Wednesday morning and I've read the reports in the paper for the last 2 days. So there are just some bits and pieces that I think perhaps need to be, and all the reading that I've been doing, that need to be perhaps made a little more explicit. But first of all, a bouquet. The Expo, congratulations, and also this booklet about asset management plans for property. My goodness, we've heard Amanaki talk today, we've heard asset management about the turfs. Asset management plans are essential, and the lovely thing about this is that it addresses some of the things for 30 years in advance. It's not just looking 10 years, which was the habit in the past, but actually looking at 30 years. And it contains in it this wonderful pictorial, which just helps people to get an idea of what the property of the council is. Because I do remember, and there's at least 2 councillors here who will remember, that on council in 2007, there was no portfolio, no list of what council owned in the way of property. And it took 3 years to complete that, and there were some surprises. But now, this is aligned to city goals and plans. It's aligned to the 10-year plan. It's aligned to the financial strategy. There's 30 years of infrastructure strategy where this is the executive summary. You've signed off on all these plans, and they were presented to us as your best efforts on behalf of us all and our futures. Now, how to improve facilities maintenance and monitor performance. Now, I've been on and off the Awapuni Community Centre Management Committee since 1982. And I remember when it was built back in the 60s, and we have only just had a major revamp of that facility in order to take out from the original part of the building the asbestos-backed vinyl, which had been there for 67 years. You can see why this emphasis is so important. Now, I've read the draft line item budget report presented to you some months ago, and you agreed to this, and I don't know if any of you remember line item 2343. It's etched in my memory because this is what it says. Citywide, new community hubs, and with the added descriptions and benefits. The description transforming and combining existing community facilities into hub models. And the benefits: developing new and expanded community hubs to enable the grouping of services and enable efficiencies. Now, wouldn't everybody give a big tick to both of those? Now, you will also notice it says nothing about libraries in particular. What it says is the combining of facilities for efficiencies. So the Western Community Hub is a much bigger picture than just giving Awapuni a new library. So if you look at Awapuni, you have a flavour of our community from Leslie's comments about the op shop submission. Now, there have been multiple submissions over multiple years, first for a whānau centre at Alexander Park, a community hub, then that concept was expanded to include a community library, and Awapuni grew out of their library years ago. Then an added community kitchen, and that was to meet the 4412 postcode needs for the activities that were going on related to Kai security and used by Supergrands, Let's Grow Palmy for shared meals. Very difficult to see Georgie from Supergrands trying to do a preserving workshop in the library where there was no space, so they went over to St Matthew's. But those facilities are not developed to cater for a group of people learning to cook, learning to preserve. Now, Steve Bramley was asked to provide a feasibility study for a Western Community Hub, and that was to enable that grouping of services and enable efficiencies. So Steve consulted, and everything that the consultation covered is included there, but there were some surprises, like the changing places bathrooms that none of us had ever heard of. But what a wonderful way of meeting enabling good lives principles and supporting the disability community. I think you heard from Renee yesterday. What we have now is the spatial plan stage, placeholder, and the artist's impression of how it could all fit together. David Chappell talked to you about the false impression the architect's design has had, setting the project up to fail, a plan too grand for Awapuni, and a number of other comments as well. It's not open to College Street. The river was transformed to face to be city-facing. Western Hub needs to be as well. Now, it talks about 1,500 square metres. Yes, that space is all needed. Both the consultants, Steve and Sue Sutherland for the library, from their backgrounds and experience, know what is needed. So what does a modern library look like? Well, it probably doesn't look like what we've got now, to be able to be open for longer times, like in the evening, which has been a need identified and not met well. So it wasn't planned to take the whole of the city library when the earthquake strengthening happened. One submitter on Wednesday thought that was what was going to happen. It simply wouldn't fit in. But it does allow some services and staff to be deployed to that area. And I know the project will be revised through further consultation with the community. Now, the Western Community Hub, Cyclone Gabrielle certainly shook up New Zealand, and John Coombs on Wednesday started by saying we're going to have an earthquake at some stage. So how prepared is Palmerston North? Now, Janine introduced me to the fact that Queenstown is talking about disaster-defying resilience. What an amazing term. And all around the country, community hubs are being developed as multi-purpose facilities in order to make a response to that kind of emergency. There will be extra cost to create a future-proof, sustainable, resilient base, a building with essential civil defence features, especially communication. That seems to be a big a deficit in Hawke's Bay. And it's also an opportunity for PNCC to display, encourage, lead and demonstrate what the features of sustainable building looks like, how it works, providing an example, and also it's a model that's likely to last for 80 years if you compare it with the good reputation the Awapuni Community Centre has. So this is an inspiring opportunity to do something which is ground up development to fit a purpose, not just one, but many layers of purpose. And the costs are not all in one financial year. The land's been bought in this year. You've got 3 more years in terms of development, and perhaps even 4. So it's not going to be all at once. I better stop.
Well, congratulations, Annette. You're bang on time of 10 minutes. Thank you so much for sharing your submission verbally with us and to the rest of your friends and supporters. Take care. Councillors, just before I invite our next guest speaker, we do have an extra guest speaker to follow after this one. And I'll introduce you to him when I call him up. So I'd like to invite now Mr. John Bent with submission 1229. Welcome, John. John, if you just give you a little console, a tap on the right corner, it should pop up. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, councillors. I will begin with just a couple of brief general comments. First one is, as I've brought up before elsewhere, there is no single one-term, long-term plan document either printed, and that is only supplementary information. It is not a single document, in print or on the website. Now, on the website, again, you have to go hunting if you want to find everything. Various acts specify that public notices are given by the council on all sorts of matters from time to time. But if you go to public notices on your website, you do not get all the current public notices, and you have not done for some couple of years. So, having said that, before I make give my conclusion, I'm now inviting you all to ask questions on my submission.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, John. Yes, we do have some questions for you, and if I could go to Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, John. That was very brief. I just want to ask in your submission under point 4, you say the word social only occurs 3 times in the Act. I've checked the Act and it's quite clear. It asks us to look after the social wellbeing of our community. So I just wonder what you mean
Which part
by
of the Act says that?
Section 5, Strategic Asset B, as you identified. So I was just wondering what you mean by that.
Yeah, section, you're referring to my 3 or what?
In your submission under point 4.
Oh, point 4, sorry.
You refer to a word social only occurring 3 times in the Act. I just wonder what you mean by only occurring. Are you implying that we shouldn't be looking after the social wellbeing of our community, or what do you mean by that?
Those clauses are the only clauses that contain the word social. Therefore, and here I forget which judge it is in the Supreme Court, it's either Tipping or McGrath, in a unanimous decision in the Supreme Court, words are to be given their natural and ordinary meaning. I give the word social its natural and ordinary meaning.
And could you enlighten us as to what that natural and ordinary meaning may be?
I thought I put it in here.
That's right, we can move on to another question. So you've asked us not to include the effectively homelessness prevention items that are in our plan. I just want to understand, in your view, should council respond when we get complaints and requests to deal with those who are homeless in our community and support them? How do you think we should respond to that? Should we just not?
I think that would be, I have seen such responses in other jurisdictions where whatever body it is that's putting together the report recommends to the relevant authority that this issue be dealt with. In this instance, I put it to you that the relevant authority is the state in the form of the Department of Health.
All right, thank you for your perspective.
That concludes our question. That concludes our questions, John. Thank you so much for presenting your submission tonight.
Not going to finish with that.
Sorry, my apologies. Councillor Naylor.
Apologies, but John, your submission is only showing up as I wish to speak to my submission in the information that's been provided. So I just wondered if you wanted to expand on that today.
See it.
Yeah. That's okay. Perhaps I'll read it later. It sounds like other people have received it. Okay, I'll just leave it there then.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thanks again, John. Appreciate your time.
Wait a minute. Haven't finished. Now, because this all goes to expenditure on unnecessary items, the transfer of obligations from central government to local government, and the reverse does happen or been attempted to happen. So rates are paying for this, one way or another, should it go ahead. And for many purposes, I can call myself a South Auckland boy. 150 years ago, there was no South Auckland. What is now regarded as South Auckland was the East Tamaki Roads Board. And they rated the community on terms of pence per acre owned. And at that time, lots of land of 50 acres were advertised as suitable for the working man. So he would pay whatever the rate they struck was only several pence per acre, but 50 acres is about £1 or something or whatever over that. And they confined themselves to that. Although in Auckland, in the same time, another body in Avondale, under the colonial government, It wasn't the colonial government that established what is the first asylum in New Zealand. And that brings me back to who are the homeless. Near enough, better part of half, are those who have a substance use disorder. The rest have a mixture of serious or severe mental disorders, such as, especially including antisocial personality disorder, major depression, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder. In Avondale, to the best of my knowledge, an asylum was created for those who had serious or severe mental disorders. That asylum was either Kingseat or Carrington. So local government, no one else was providing the service, so a local body decided to step in and provide that social service. Now, just the final one on which you're sure you have heard plenty is the Featherston Street alterations. It is my view, and with all due respect to this council, that was brought about by a Stalinist diktat. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Bents. Really appreciate you talking to your submission tonight. So thanks for joining us. And like all the others, it'll be forwarded to the deliberations at the end of the month. Thanks for coming along. Councillors, it gives me great pleasure to invite our last speaker for session 14, Mr. John Munro. If you'd like to come to the microphone, John. Submission number 1031. And apologies, that's not in your papers, councillors.
Thank you very much for hearing me, and I must say I'm very impressed with the stamina of the council. What I'm here to talk about is
it is water.
Is to make a plea to consider relocating canoe polo. It's a popular sport and it's growing, but it's located in the wrong place. I think it's very close to homes, and I live in one of them. And the problem is it's an extremely loud sport in which the canoes ram each other, and there's a lot of shouting and clashing of oars. And it starts in summer about 5:15 in the evening and goes till dark or after dark. And it goes all weekend. So outside of work hours, we residents have no time when we're not listening to that noise. And it's not like having a rugby practice where people pack up and go home. They just seem to be replaced by new players. So we feel that the council should consider creating a dedicated facility where canoe polo can be carried out and not cause the stress it's causing to residents. And I know it is, well, it causes me quite a lot of stress. I get really, I would love to be able to go out in the evening and have a glass of wine. Oh, sorry, I'm not very good at holding my emotions. Having a glass of wine in the garden, you know, at night, but we can't do that. I suppose another aspect of it is it's quite ugly. The equipment that goes with it, and the lagoon's quite a beautiful setting. And another thing I think is that we've never been considered. There was a meeting with stakeholders about the siting of the canoe polo on the lagoon, but the residents have never been consulted, as far as I'm aware. And so I don't think there's any sort of measure against which compliance with the Resource Management Act can be assessed. And in my reading of the Act, I think it is a breach of the Act that such a obtrusive kind of sport is situated right close to residents without any assessment of the effect that it might have. There are options for alleviating the situation, and temporarily, hopefully, and that is maybe moving the canoe polo up the other end of the lagoon every second year or something like that, or else situating it between Cassia Birch and the chalet, where there's a stretch of the lagoon that doesn't have homes right next to it. In terms of setting up a facility for canoe polo, I think the actual requirement in terms of water and area is not very great. I don't think it would be a terribly expensive undertaking to actually create a facility somewhere else where it's away from annoying people and maybe has room for expansion. Yes, I suppose I've said everything I needed to say, and I'm also speaking on behalf of residents. We've written to the council several times over the years, and our letters usually get forwarded on to the Canoe Polo Club, and that's the end of it.
Wonderful.
So I'll finish there. I'm sure you're very tired.
Well, thank you so much, John. I really appreciate you talking to your submission. Are you happy to take a couple of questions from councillors?
Yeah, sure.
Wonderful. Councillor Finlay.
John, how long have you been living there beside the...
About 7 years.
7 years.
When we first went there.
How long...
Canoe polo wasn't there.
It wasn't there when you started?
No. Well, it was down the other end, but there was only about one court as far as I was aware.
So canoe polo was there before you put your house?
I think it might have been, but it moved after the earthquake. But I don't think the decision to establish 3 permanent courts had been made at that stage.
Okay. The next question is, you'd like to see us move it. Can you give us a suggestion where we'd move it to?
No, I haven't really looked into that. I've just come from the angle of the effect it's having on me and the neighbours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, John, there's a couple more to come, John, if that's okay. Councillor Mickelard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, John. Good to see you. I had one of my questions has been answered around the relocation of it.
Yep.
My other questions around the frequency of it. You say that during the summer, you get quite a lot of canoe players coming there on a daily basis, and some of them come at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
I want to talk about during a different season of the year, let's say winter, autumn, and that sort of thing. Is it the same thing?
No, it eases off a bit in the winter, when daylight saving comes, but they still do play.
So the problem is largely during the summer season?
Mainly during the summer, yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Councillor Zabellin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, John. We've actually had a submission from the Canoe Polo Club asking for our support to establish a forecourt facility somewhere else in the city. So may I take from that you would be supportive of the council supporting them to do that?
Yes, very supportive. I think it would improve the lagoon immensely. Not having all that sort of industrial looking, I wouldn't say junk, but their canoe polo equipment there. And I think the lagoon, it's quite a unique sort of remnant of the where the Manawa used to be. And I personally would rather see it as a peaceful sort of nature reserve that canoeists could use, but not the polo canoeists, because that's so loud. And
Excellent. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
I think our last question from the councillor, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming in and sharing your concerns. Could you give us an insight into how many people live adjacent to the lagoon?
Well, there's about 5 homes immediately, or 5 or 6 immediately adjacent to the courts, and the courts are only about 15 or 20 metres away from from my home anyway. So,
right.
I mean, you're really quite close.
So
it's very hard to get away from the noise.
Yeah, understood. I heard your submission. I was just trying to understand. Several times during the submission, you referred to we, and I was trying to understand if that was you and your household, or how broadly that feeling is shared amongst neighbours.
The people who used to be next to me, Barry Melody, he's died, but he wrote to the council about it.
Right.
The people the other side have also moved. David Stevens, is it Stevens?
Yeah, I don't necessarily need names. I'm just trying to get a sense of numbers.
Previous neighbours have written, but 2 of them have gone.
Right.
And the one sort of almost next to the bridge is getting fairly annoyed by it.
Right. Okay, thanks. That's helpful, Mr. Chair.
Wonderful. John, thanks again for presenting your submission verbally to us tonight, and on behalf of the residents around the lagoon, we look forward to seeing it at the deliberations at the end of the month.
Thanks very much for hearing me.
Thank you very much. Councillors, we're back in the chamber at 6 p.m. for hearing session number 15.